we get the now patented CWF indoor multi-drone flying in with multiple scenes shown of the various fans in the Rogers Place Arena, here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. The graphic shows 19,345 CWF fans have joined us live, out of an arena capacity of 20,700. The drones give a couple of flybys, picking up all the signs and cosplayers, before they all stop in front of the huge screen over the stage area. Slowly 4 women come out of one side of the backstage entrances, and take positions around a setup for a band to perform with their drums and microphones. Out of the other side comes Ian Childress, smiling and waving to some of the fans close to the stage area. Ian Childress, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to Shadow Warfare. Tonight is the first co-branded pay-per-view, or as some have started to call them, premium live events, between the Conquest Wrestling Federation and 4 Winds Wrestling. The crowd starts to light up. Ian Childress, now, a few days ago at the Shadows Rising Vanguard pre-show, 2 4WW titles were up for grabs and both changed hands. The Bastards secured the 4WW Legion Championships, taking them from the upstarts, and Wicked Cat Hale defeated Tetsuo Oni to become the second Tempest champion. A mixed reaction starts at the mention of the Bastards' win, but then turns into a huge bit of cheering for Cat Hale. Ian Childress, and tonight, we'll have Bad Company defending the 4WW Dyad titles, as well as the CWF Tag Team titles against the Carnival of Shadows, and Rob Riot defending his 4 Winds Championship against Greg Salazar. Oh, and dare I forget, that will be in a last man standing match. The crowd erupts at that mention. Ian Childress, of course we're going to have all of our other matches for the CWF tonight. Abby Dresden defends the Valor title in her 4th defense against Justin Wingate, who won the shot at the Vanguard pre-show. The vacant Elite Championship will get a new owner tonight in an Ultimate X match. Another bout of cheering from the crowd. Ian Childress, and let's not forget the main event for CWF tonight. Frank Windsor challenges the Conquest champion, Cronin Reinhardt. And that will be Hell in a Cell with last man standing rules. And the crowd again lights up at the thought of one more of the matches for the night. Ian Childress, but we're going to start you all off with 2 special things. After I toss it to our ringside announcing crew of Ben Price and Eddie Vega, we'll start things off with the explosive barbed wire match between the hardcore icons Steve Murdoch and Monster Mammoth, which I have had to find a special guest referee that was willing to help keep that match under some sort of control. And we have decided that the winner of this match will get a shot at the 4WW Maelstrom Championship, held by Eddie Williams. Again, the crowd erupts at the thought of that match being first, and the prospect of either Murdoch or Monster Mammoth getting a shot at the Maelstrom Championship. Ian Childress, but now something near and dear to my heart. 24 years ago when the first rendition of 4 Winds Wrestling signed off in their final Maelstrom pay-per-view, this band performed to sign us off, tonight. They're back to sign us back on in this new era. So here to perform We're Shadows, the theme for Shadow Warfare, from London, Ontario, Canada, this is Kitty. At that, Ian backs up, and lets the drone cameras take over, as they come in to get a shot at the band as they start to perform We're Shadows, the first single off their new album, Fire. As the song finishes up, the members of Kitty bow to the Canadian crowd, and some roadies come out to start to break down their set, and we go to Ben Price and Fast Eddie Vega, our announcing team. Ben Price, as Mr. Childress said, welcome to Shadow Warfare, and he already ran down the card for you tonight, but we have a hell of a show lined up. Eddie Vega, and we're starting it off with a bang, quite literally, as we have everything set up for an explosive barbed wire match between Steve Murdoch and Monster Mammoth setup here. And this match is so dangerous, none of the CWF referees are wanting to do this. To top it off, I hear our insurance company backed them up. Ben Price, that is correct, so Mr. Childress himself went and found someone who would referee this match, and we're told we'll find out who that is coming up in just a couple of minutes. Eddie Vega, this match has been building for months. Monster Mammoth beat Steve Murdoch so bad, he gave up hardcore wrestling. But now, he's back and he tricked Mammoth into signing a contract for what could very well be the most dangerous match tonight. Ben Price, let's let our ring announcer, Eric Wilson, take it from here. Eric Wilson, the following contest is scheduled for one fall. It is an exploding barbed wire death match. The ropes are replaced by barbed wire and the ring is set to explode in 30 minutes if the match is not finished in this time period. We have a special guest referee for tonight's contest. Introducing the Irish bastard Sean McClancy. Eulogy by Tool begins playing as Sean McClancy walks out from the back in black jeans and a sleeveless referee shirt. He looks around at the cheering crowd, cracking a grin, before heading down to the ring to stand in the center of the ring. Ben Price, the Irish bastard, comes out of retirement to referee this match. Eddie Vega, who is this guy? Ben Price, well, back in the PTC territories, he held the PTC hardcore title like 18 times. He's held every hardcore title in every federation he's been in. To top it off, he's the twin brother to Faye McClancy, the wife of Ian Childress, which also makes him Blaze McClancy's first cousin. But this man's hardcore credibility is bona fide, and he was the only one brave enough to step into the ring to referee these two guys in this type of match. Eddie Vega, yeah, that makes sense. Not only is the ring rigged to explode, but the ropes have been replaced with barbed wire. On top of all that, you never can tell what these guys will bring down to the ring to use on each other. Eric Wilson, featuring the challenger, hailing from Detroit, Michigan, he is the peak of freak Monster Mammoth. Monster Mammoth comes out from backstage, tearing off a propped-up curtain from the walkway. Putting it over his head, covering his eyes, and standing under a purple light on the stage for 15 seconds. He rolls his neck eerily from side to side, before ripping off the curtain and throwing it into the crowd. He points to himself while walking down the ramp, pointing his thumbs at himself and gesturing to his person. With an intimidating expression, he gets close to the barricades on both sides and shakes them with his hands. Spitting and snarling like a dog before hitting his own head once against the steel steps. Putting his arms to the sky and dragging them towards his chest slowly and with much anticipation, before climbing up the steps and wiping his boots on the apron. Monster Mammoth steps over the top rope, holding it down with his strength, and then gets to the center of the ring. He climbs up on the turnbuckle's middle rope and flexes for the crowd, hopping down from the spot and jogging around the ring once. Acting as if every boo is only further motivation. Ben Price, Monster Mammoth, has been tempting Steve Murdoch for months to return to hardcore wrestling. I wonder if he really wanted this outcome. Eddie Vega, it must be what he wanted since he has been trying to get Steve to break his word. Eric Wilson, and his opponent, hailing from Dallas, Texas, he is the hardcore icon Steve Murdoch. Darkness covers the arena as the first few guitar riffs of Down to Earth play. A red spotlight shines down center stage on Steve Murdoch, who raises a kendo stick in the air to a roaring cheer of the crowd and makes his way to the ring. Before the bell sounds to start the match, Steve Murdoch takes the microphone from Eric Wilson and grins at Monster Mammoth. Steve Murdoch, you just couldn't wait to have me embrace the hardcore life again. You pushed me and pushed me until I accepted that this was the life for me. Are you ready? Are you ready for the hardcore life? Monster Mammoth beats on his chest to signify that he is indeed ready for the hardcore life. Steve Murdoch, very well. So, it begins. Little orange men around 3 to 4 feet tall begin to come out from the back. They are in blood-stained white overalls with a crown of barbed wire. Each of the nearly 24 men are each holding a weapon as they make their way down to ringside. Oompa, oompa. Oompa da do. I've got another puzzle for you. What do you do when you want to see blood? Slice open your foes like you're starting a flood. Slash and gash, then arterial spray. We'll cover the mat like you're both insane. Make your opponent scream and yelp. You're gonna need some medical help. Oompa loompa doopity doo. Don't try to say that we didn't warn you. Ben Price, what the heck? Oompa Loompa bearing weapons for the match? Eddie Vega, I think I may have seen it all. As the Oompa Loompa settle down outside of the ring as miniature lumberjacks after tossing their weapons into the ring, the bell is sounded to start the match. Steve Murdoch and Monster Mammoth look around the ring and to each other with a mutual shrug and mouthing what the fuck. Steve Murdoch begins by throwing the microphone in his hand at Monster Mammoth, who ducks under the projectile with ease. It costs him though as Steve Murdoch rushes in with a knee lift that staggers Mammoth right back into the barbed wire where the barbs cut into his flesh. Mammoth springs from the ropes and heads right for Steve, but a big boot to the chest stops him in his tracks even as it doesn't knock him down. Mammoth grabs Steve by the shoulders and headbutts him, but Steve remains in place. Steve Murdoch, was that supposed to hurt? Monster Mammoth, you know it. Steve grabs Mammoth by the shoulders and delivers his own headbutt. Once he releases Mammoth, the big man staggers, but remains standing. Monster Mammoth, weak. Steve Murdoch, try me. Monster Mammoth grabs Steve Murdoch by the shoulders and delivers a smashing headbutt that sends Steve down to one knee. Steve has his hands to his face, before he stands up and grabs Mammoth by the shoulders and delivers a headbutt so hard that blood splatters between the two of them, and Mammoth falls flat onto his back. Ben Price, what is that? Eddie Vega, looks like he quickly glued a small metal plate to his forehead. Steve staggers backward to the barbed wires to use them to keep himself standing as blood trickles from underneath the metal plate on his forehead. He grins as Mammoth slowly gets back up, bleeding from the forehead. Steve Murdoch, good enough? Monster Mammoth, you cheated. Steve Murdoch, I broke no rules. Ben Price, this is true. He didn't break any rules. Eddie Vega, I reckon, but it's still weak. Monster Mammoth charges at Steve Murdoch, hitting a shoulder charge that sends Steve back first into the barbed wire ropes. He grins as flesh is caught up into the barbs and is torn. He steps back to Mammoth and slugs him in the jaw with a hard right hand that staggers Mammoth back a few steps toward the center of the ring. Steve sets his feet and roars. Steve Murdoch, you can't do that again. Monster Mammoth goes to repeat the shoulder charge when Steve Murdoch hits a drop toe hold that sends Mammoth directly into the barbed wire where he becomes entangled in the ropes. Steve kicks him in the backside and then backs off while referee, Sean McClancy, works to get Mammoth released from the ropes. Once freed, Monster Mammoth looks for Steve Murdoch and gets hit upside the head with a garbage can lid as Steve folds the lid around the head of the Mammoth. A snap suplex takes Mammoth to the center of the ring. Steve Murdoch picks up a kendo stick and walks over to the rising Mammoth, slamming the stick over his shoulders on his back. Steve Murdoch, you asked for this, practically begged for the violence to return. Tell me. How do you like it? Monster Mammoth rolls over, revealing a staple gun in his hand. He presses it to Steve's leg and pulls the trigger several times. He hits different spots as Steve moves to get away. Monster Mammoth, I like it a lot. Ben Price, I don't recall that being brought to the ring. Eddie Vega, Mammoth must have brought that himself. Monster Mammoth stands up and hits Steve Murdoch in the face with the staple gun, sending a staple into Steve's right cheek just below the eye. Steve backs up to a corner, his hands flying up to his eye as he howls in pain. Monster Mammoth charges, hitting an avalanche, and thrusting Steve into the barbed wire ropes. Mammoth backs up a step and puts several staples into Steve's chest. Steve rips the staple out from his face and puts it into his mouth. As Monster Mammoth comes at him again, he grabs Mammoth by the shoulders and spits the staple into his mouth. Mammoth backs up while dropping the staple gun, his hands going to his throat as he coughs and gags. Ben Price, holy crap. Does this make them blood brothers now? Eddie Vega, I don't think so, but there are worse ways to go than inhaling a staple. Steve steps up and kicks Mammoth in the midsection with a big boot, causing a staple to come flying out of his mouth where it lands on Steve's chest. Steve hits a cradle piledriver and goes for the pinfall. Sean McClancy gets into position to make the count. 1. TW Monster Mammoth kicks out. Ben Price, did Murdoch just save Mammoth's life? Eddie Vega, that could be, yeah. Steve Murdoch gets to his feet and meets the rising Monster Mammoth with a hard right hand to the jaw. He gets Mammoth into a front facelock, really applying the pressure. Monster Mammoth grabs Steve by the legs and stands up, forcing Steve to break the hold. He drops backward, sending both him and Steve into the corner. Mammoth stands up easily while Steve is hanging upside down and caught in the barbed wire ropes. Steve grits his teeth as flesh tears from him trying to get himself free, and Mammoth laughs a bit before starting to kick him in the midsection, chest, and face over and over again. Sean gets in between the two so that he can help Steve get free. Mammoth grumbles, but backs away. Ben Price, I think both men have an understanding that Sean McClancy won't hesitate to fuck them up if they step out of line. Eddie Vega, this is true. He would do that. Steve Murdoch stands up and growls as he bleeds from many small wounds across his body and from his face where he was cut open by the bottom of Mammoth's boots. He takes a few steps toward Mammoth and then drops down to one knee. Mammoth begins to strut over, feeling that Steve is nearly finished. He leans down to pick Steve up when he gets blasted in the face with a pair of brass knuckles. Blood flies through the air as Mammoth stands straight up from the impact and then falls onto his back. Ben Price, what an impact with those brass knuckles. Eddie Vega, he lured Mammoth in perfectly right there. Monster Mammoth quickly gets back to his feet, roaring in anger as blood steams from his nose and onto his chest. He advances on Steve Murdoch, who goes for another brass knuckle shot, but Mammoth catches the fist. Steve looks surprised and Mammoth a fixture of pain and anger. Ben Price, I bet he at least cracked a bone in that hand from the impact. Eddie Vega, you're not wrong. That looks like that hurt like heck. Mammoth pulls Steve in for a ripcord lariat, sending Steve right to the mat. He then lifts the man into a press slam position, walks over to the side of the ring, and dumps Steve over the ropes into one of the troughs containing the explosives. Sean McClancy looks at Monster Mammoth like what the fuck, and Monster Mammoth just shrugs and walks to the other side of the ring where he picks up a kendo stick with barbed wire on it. He also picks up a glass bottle of something clear that oozes out as he pours it onto the barbed wire kendo stick. A couple of Oompa Loompa come to help Steve Murdoch out of the broken explosive and back into the ring. He's covered in black dust from the sweat and blood that was on his body. Monster Mammoth can only laugh as he lights the barbed wire kendo stick on fire. Ben Price, are you kidding me? Steve's covered in gunpowder and Mammoth has a flaming barbed wire kendo stick? Eddie Vega, a recipe for disaster. Steve watches as Mammoth starts to slowly make his way across the ring. Steve doesn't look fearful as he casually picks up a bottle of rum and pops the top off so he can down some of it. When Mammoth gets close enough to take a swing, Steve sidesteps the blow. Liquid fire flies through the air and into the crowd, causing screams of panic as the stuff burns. Mammoth turns to take another swing, the kendo stick in front of him. Steve spits out the rum at Mammoth, the blazing kendo stick turning the cloud of spit rum into a fireball. Mammoth drops the kendo stick, his hands going to his blinded eyes. He tries to blindly kick Steve, but catches the kendo stick instead, getting some of the flaming goop onto his boot and sending the kendo stick from the ring. Steve's eyes go wide as the kendo stick falls into the broken open explosives and dives toward the center of the ring. Monster Mammoth clears his sight and looks down to where the kendo stick was, noticing his foot on fire. He opens his mouth to yell when boom! Monster Mammoth is cast to the center of the ring as the explosives on one side of the ring go off, the fire on his foot going out from the blast. Ben Price, good thing that Steve Murdoch made it out of the way or else the gunpowder on him would have gone off. Eddie Vega, I think it's wet now from sweat so it shouldn't go off. Ben Price, oh. I had no idea that wet gunpowder doesn't burn. Eddie Vega, and now you know. And knowing is half the battle. Steve Murdoch gets up and grabs Mammoth by the arm, applying a cross-arm breaker. Sean McClancy checks to see if Mammoth will submit, but he refuses. The hold is kept on for a few seconds more when Mammoth manages to grab Steve's leg and sink his teeth into it. Steve lets out a yelp and releases the hold, rolling away from Mammoth and grabbing at his bleeding leg. Mammoth spits out blood and gets to his feet, watching as Steve gets up and rushes him like a charging bull. Mammoth catches Steve with a spear and lifts him up, crashing into a corner with him before ripping him away from the barbed wire ropes to set him on the top turnbuckle. He brings him into a fireman's carry and finally slams him down with a spinebuster. He goes for the cover and Sean gets into position for the count. 1, 2. THR Steve Murdoch kicks out. Ben Price, Monster Mammoth with the freaking you combo and still couldn't keep Steve Murdoch down. Eddie Vega might have been wise to stay down though to keep from getting further injuries. Mammoth stands up and looks at the downed Steve before placing a foot on Steve's chest and then stepping up to have both feet on his chest before stepping off of him. Mammoth pulls Steve up and nails a belly-to-belly suplex, going for the pinfall once again. 1, 2. Steve kicks out. Monster Mammoth glares at Sean McClancy, who ensures that Mammoth knows for certain that it was a 2 count only. He gets up to his feet and grabs Steve, lifting him to get him into a powerbomb position, but Steve pulls him down into a jawbreaker. Ben Price, what a turnaround by Steve. Eddie Vega, he's trying. This match has been terribly bloody. Steve gets back up to his feet and pulls Mammoth up before whipping him back first into the barbed wire. He walks over and wraps Mammoth's arms into the top 2 ropes of barbed wire to get him stuck in place. He walks over and grabs his brass knuckles and slides them on before walking back over to Mammoth. Steve Murdoch, you had defeated me in my last hardcore match. Why couldn't you leave me alone? Steve smashes Mammoth in the mouth with the brass knuckles. Steve Murdoch, I swore off all hardcore wrestling. Turned myself into a finely tuned wrestling machine. You couldn't leave well enough alone. Steve smashes Mammoth in the mouth again, sending blood spraying from his mouth and across the mat. Steve Murdoch, welp, now I'm back. You get to sip all your meals through a straw from here out. Steve draws his fist back to strike Mammoth again when he cannot move his arm. He spins around to see that Sean McClancy has him by the arm. Sean McClancy, he can't fight back like that, boyo. When Sean releases the arm, it seems that Steve considers striking him, but reconsiders it. He backs away while Sean frees Mammoth from the barbed wire ropes. Mammoth rubs his jaw once freed and spits blood onto the mat before charging at Steve again. This time, Mammoth strikes Steve with the tusks, driving Steve back first into the barbed wire ropes. Mammoth steps back with a laugh. Monster Mammoth, I was set to bring out your true inner freak self, but now? I'm going to break your bones. Ben Price, Mammoth acting like he just remembered that he has tusks. Eddie Vega, well, that's the fault of, never mind. Mammoth turns his head and snaps his head back to slam Steve in the face with the tusks. He then pulls Steve from the barbed wire ropes into a ripcord lariat with the tusks that sends Steve to the mat. Steve tries to get right back up, but Mammoth kicks him in the face, sending blood and spittle across the mat. Monster Mammoth, what's the matter now? Steve tries to get up, but Mammoth kicks him in the ribcage to get him knocked back down. Monster Mammoth, no more quips. Steve sits up, but a stomp to the center of his face sends him right back down. Monster Mammoth, come on. Show me your freak before I break you forever. Steve sits up, but this time, Mammoth kicks him in the throat. Steve falls back to the mat and curls up, coughing up blood onto the mat. Monster Mammoth, show me. Ben Price, this is getting out of hand. Someone should stop the match. Eddie Vega, an award who the winner? Ben Price, just stop the match. Eddie Vega, I'm sure someone is going to lose here soon or else the rest of the explosives will go off. Monster Mammoth places his hands on his knees and leans down, his trunk just touching Steve in the shoulder. Monster Mammoth, surrender. Lay flat on the mat for the pinfall and this can be all over. I'll be the hardcore icon and you can go to the old folks' home. When Steve doesn't respond, Mammoth nudges him with a tusk. Monster Mammoth, you've lost, old man. Steve Murdoch rolls over suddenly with a hammer in his hand. He swings the hammer at Mammoth's head, striking the right tusk near the base. With a loud crack, the tusk snaps off and turns Mammoth's head. Steve rolls again and pulls his feet all the way to his chest while Mammoth closes in again with the intent to use his remaining tusk as a weapon. Steve plants his feet onto Mammoth's chest and kicks with both legs as he straightens out. Monster Mammoth falls back toward the center of the ring. Ben Price, whoa. Eddie Vega, right? Steve Murdoch drops the hammer and picks up the broken tusk. Mammoth tries to get up, but Steve kicks him in the forehead to knock him down. Steve mounts Mammoth and begins slamming him in the face with the broken tusk over and over again. Steve Murdoch, I am the hardcore icon. 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 Sean McClancy sees that Mammoth's arms fall to the mat and thus his shoulders are pinned. He gets into position to make the count. 1, 2, 3. Marcela Sancho, winner of the match and next up to get a shot at the Maelstrom Championship, Steve Murdoch. Steve stands up and throws the broken tusk down by Monster Mammoth's head and spits a gob of blood onto his chest. Steve Murdoch, I am no freak. I am the hardcore icon. With that, the Oompa Loompa head to the back as mysteriously as they came. Steve Murdoch follows them under his own power. Daniel Corgan steps into the ring as the barbed wire ropes are being taken down to check on the still down Monster Mammoth. Ben Price, that was a match that both men are going to feel for the days to come. Eddie Vega, as we put ropes back to the ring and clean up all of the blood spilled, we're going to go backstage to Bad Company. Ben Price, oh. I think we're going to find out who of the three will be representing Bad Company against the Carnival of Shadows. Eddie Vega, that would certainly be good to know. The camera cuts back to the locker room of Bad Company. Cronin, Kara and Greg Salazar stand in the locker room with the 4 tag team title belts, 2 CWF tag team titles and 2 4 wins dyad belts respectively, sitting on the bench. Alyssa Luke Shee stands with them. Alyssa Luke Shee, I'm backstage with Bad Company who have done a great job of utilizing the Freebird rules of the tag titles and keeping everyone guessing. But now is the moment of truth. The moment where we hope to find out once and for all who will handle the task of defending the titles. Kara steps forward from the group and looks at Alyssa. Kara Reinhardt, simple. It will be me and Greg this time out. Alyssa Luke Shee, a surprise indeed. You and your brother were the holders of the belts, so it was assumed he would defend the belts. Kara shrugs. Kara Reinhardt, yeah, ownership decided to institute the Freebird rule. I also cannot name a team in this Fed that would not do some variation of what we're doing. Cronin is the Conquest champion. Greg and I are going to handle the Carnival's rejects and allow the champ to focus solely on his match. Alyssa nods as she listens. Alyssa Luke Shee, both of you have championship matches as well. You're competing for the Elite title and Greg for the 4 wins title belt. Kara Reinhardt, but we aren't the champs yet. Greg Salazar, yeah, now, how's the Carnival going to deal with this? 2 former military personnel with a penchant for kicking ass in ways more than the traditional wrestling sense. You know how the Marines would put this. Hoorah! Let's get this done. Alyssa Luke Shee, well I suppose that's a point and at any rate, at least we know who will be defending the belts. Kara Reinhardt and Greg Salazar. The camera goes back to the announcers. Ben Price, so we're getting a former Marine and former military rescue person from the German military against the Carnival tonight. Both of these people are trained to fight. Eddie Vega, yes, but can they actually work together as a team like Kara and her brother do? Greg Salazar is not her twin brother. Ben Price, as I understand it, Bad Company has been working and training together since they formed right before episode 1 for season 3. Eddie Vega, the Carnival got a shot at the tag team titles at Urban Warfare and came up short then, when it was the Reinhardt twins. How can this be fair to them? Ben Price, not sure it is. But they were told there was a chance for any combination of Bad Company defending tonight. So they have to deal with it. Not like it's being sprung on them at the last minute. Eddie Vega, well one thing is for sure, after that barbed wire match and the other matches tonight, this one isn't going to be anywhere near as dangerous. Eddie Vega, by far, no explosives or Oompa Loompa in this one, but looks like the extra ring crew they brought in for tonight are done, and the ring ropes are replaced. And Eric Wilson, the following contest is scheduled for one fall and is for the CWF Tag Team Championship and the 4WW Dyad Championship. Featuring first the challengers, at a combined weight of 460 pounds, Katia Carnivalka and the Marquis de Harlequin. They are the Carnival of Shadows. As the eerie melody of Carnival of the Damned begins, a mist of deep blue and crimson creeps across the stage. The arena lights flicker as if reacting to the haunting carnival tune, casting shadowy silhouettes. Marquis de Harlequin and Katia Carnivalka emerge from the fog, their figures entwined in a macabre dance as they embrace and share a long passionate kiss on stage. They move with a choreographed grace, their steps telling a story of a love woven in darkness and danger. A spotlight follows them to the ring, their combined shadows stretching out like a dark omen. Upon entering the ring, they execute a theatrical bow, an invitation to the audience to witness the spectacle they are about to create. Ben Price, the last time that the Carnival of Shadows took on Team Reinhardt, they were spanked soundly. Eddie Vega, this time, though, they face bad company in the ring, so it could be any two of the three wrestlers in the group. Ben Price, okay, I'm going to ignore that like the Carnival did when bad company said that. Eddie Vega, sounds about right. What they don't know will hurt them though, as we just heard it's Kara Reinhardt and Greg Salazar defending the belts tonight. Eric Wilson and their opponents, they are the CWF Tag Team Champions and the 4WW Dyad Champions. They are Bad Company. Bad Company by Five Finger Death Punch begins playing as Kara Reinhardt and Greg Salazar walk out from the back to the cheering fans. They look around with smiles at the cheering crowd and then head down to the ring, hitting a few high fives with fans along the way. They step into the ring and play a quick round of rock, paper, scissors with Kara winning and staying in the ring while Greg heads to the corner. Katia prepares to meet her when the Marquis places a hand on her shoulder and steers her to the corner where she heads out. Ben Price, looks like the Marquis de Harlequin is going to start the match out with Kara Reinhardt. Eddie Vega, with what Kara has been doing, I'm sure that the Marquis doesn't want Katia to be getting sick. Ben Price, does the Marquis think that Katia would want to have sex with Kara in the middle of the ring? Eddie Vega, perhaps. You never can tell. The Marquis and Kara lock up in the middle of the ring as the bell sounds to start the match. The Marquis gains the advantage and whips Kara into the ropes. On the rebound, he goes for a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker, but Kara gets her legs around the Marquis head and brings him down with head scissors. She cranks on the pressure while gritting her teeth. Referee Ashley Beaton goes in to check if the Marquis will surrender, but then notices his foot on the ropes and has Kara break the hold. Both rise quickly, the Marquis grabbing Kara by the arm with his left hand and sinking a right fist into her midsection to double her over. He then gut-wrench suplexes her to the mat. A knee lift puts Kara right back to the mat. Ben Price, the Marquis starting the match off with a fury. Eddie Vega, he wants comeuppance from previous defeats. The Marquis watches as Kara gets back to her feet and goes for a super kick, but Kara grabs the foot in midair and sweeps the other leg while holding onto the foot. She does a spinning toe hold before dropping an elbow onto the inside of the Marquis knee. She then applies an ankle lock in the middle of the ring, cranking on the pressure. Ashley Beaton checks to see if the Marquis will give up, but he refuses. After a few moments, Kara breaks the hold and gets the Marquis back to his feet. She brings him back down to the mat with a vertical suplex. She goes for the quick cover. 1, 2. The Marquis kicks out. Ben Price, it is a bit early to go for the pinfall here. Eddie Vega, hey, it almost worked. Kara gets right up, pulls the Marquis to his feet and whips him into her corner. She charges, hitting a shoulder into the Marquis chest and then tagging in Greg Salazar. He steps into the ring as Kara steps out and connects with a spinning heel kick to the side of the Marquis head in a move called the mic drop. He then mounts the stunned Marquis in the corner and begins hammering away at the side of his head with punches until Ashley Beaton has had enough and starts counting. Once she reaches 5, he gets down and steps to the side. The Marquis takes a few steps before a wild swing at Ashley that misses and falls onto his face in a near-perfect flare flop. Greg drops an elbow to the back of the Marquis neck while he is trying to get to his feet, sending him right back to the mat. Katia on the other side of the ring shakes the ring ropes to try to cheer for her man to get up and come tag her in. The Marquis gets up and starts staggering to the other side of the ring, but Greg applies a full Nelson and turns it into a full Nelson lift into a backbreaker across the knee. Ben Price, I guess the Marquis plans for vengeance have hit a snag. Eddie Vega, you know it. They went right into the shitter. Greg pulls the Marquis up and back into a full Nelson position, hitting several cushing headbutts to the back of the Marquis head. He lifts the Marquis up, jumps up into the air, and twists to bring the Marquis down to the mat face first. Ben Price, the memento mori already? Eddie Vega, sure, why not? Greg doesn't go for the pinfall, instead, tagging in Kara. She steps through the ropes and looks across the ring at Katia before turning her attention to the Marquis. She picks him up while Greg exits the ring and runs around. She drops him in the Dresden driver. Katia starts to get into the ring as Kara is going for the pinfall, but is pulled down from the ring apron. Ashley Beaton gets into position to make the count. 1, 2, 3. Eric Wilson, winners of the match and still CWF Tag Team and 4 WW Dyad champions, Bad Company. Kara Reinhart and Greg Salazar collect their tag team belts and head to the back. As they get to the entrance stage, Armand von Kraus steps out from the back. Kara and Greg stop in their tracks, but Armand gives a slight bow and motions for them to continue. Ben Price, I wonder what Armand wants. Eddie Vega, I don't think it's something good. Armand looks down to the ring where Katia Carnivalka has gone into the ring to check on the down Marquis de Harlequin. He takes the time to light an Egyptian cigarette and takes a long drag from it before speaking. Armand von Kraus, I am not accustomed to failure on this scale, kleinen Naren. I think it is time for an ending to this little tale. He and ha 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 walk out from the back, leading a line of clowns to the ring where they surround it. Katia looks around the ring, a little bit of fear starting to show. She turns her attention back to trying to wake the Marquis de Harlequin. Katia Carnivalka, come on. Wake up. Ben Price, I think something bad is about to happen. Eddie Vega, yes, let's change away. Shall we? The clowns begin to climb up to the ring apron like a pack of hungry hunting dogs. As they near Katia and the Marquis get near, the view changes to a blissful scene of a green meadow with a deer running across it, until it's taken down and torn apart by hunting dogs. The view goes back to that of Ben Price and Eddie Vega, who both look traumatized. Ben Price, I thought it was going to be a nice cutaway. Eddie Vega, well, I did too. Armand smokes his cigarette as the clowns head to the back and are replaced by Daniel Corgan and several other EMTs as they try to help the down Katia and Marquis. Ben Price, reprehensible. Eddie Vega, well, yeah. That is not a way I would want to be fired. Ben Price, now the stretchers are being brought down to the ring to get Katia and the Marquis loaded into ambulances. Eddie Vega, I don't know what else to say. As soon as we get the ring mopped up a bit, we will move on with the show. Ben Price, I'm told we have a bit of a musical interlude here while they get things ready for our next match. The cameras go back to the stage area, where the band, Kitty, has set up once again. Their lead singer, Morgan Lander, gets things set up. Morgan Lander, we're going to dedicate this one to one of the competitors in the next matchup. One of our favorites, your CWF Valor champion and the 4 Wins Albion champion, Abigail Dresden. When the performance is over, the cameras cut back to the ring announcer, Ben Price. All right fans, we've got a big matchup next that was decided on the Shadows Rising pre-show. Justin Wingate defeated Trelisa Perot on Vanguard to earn a spot in this match where he will challenge Abigail Dresden for the Valor title. Eddie Vega, damn Vanguard commentators actually got to have Abigail as a guest commentator. Ben Price, and she did fairly well for herself, I hear. Eddie Vega, but she's coming into this match one title lighter because her team let her down and the Bastards won. Ben Price, well, I wouldn't frame it like that. The Bastards managed to win. Eric Wilson, ladies and gentlemen, the The next match is set for one fall and it is for the CWF Valor Championship. Introducing first, the challenger. He hails from Detroit, Michigan. Standing 6 feet, 1 inch tall and weighing in at 225 pounds. He is the Extreme Classic, Justin Wingate. The lights in the arena begin to flicker shades of blue and black, as One of One by T Grizzly hits the speakers. The camera pans in on the stage, as Justin Wingate steps out wearing his sleeveless, black hoodie attire. He spreads his arms wide, as he embraces the loud reception that he is receiving from the fans in attendance. As the announcer calls out his name, we can see Wingate giving every fan on the other side of the barricade a high five while making his way down the entrance ramp and towards the ring. Wingate slides under the bottom rope, then pops back up to his feet where he looks straight into the camera and points his signature finger gun directly at it. He then blasts his finger gun with a smirk on his face, and finally falls back against the side ropes, as he waits for the arrival of his opponent. Ben Price. Justin Wingate looked pretty impressive in his match against Trelisa Perot, who also looked impressive. It was a match that could have gone either way, but he's here now and I think he can make a strong challenge for the Valor title. Eddie Vega. He certainly seemed confident that his age and experience gives him an edge, and I'm inclined to believe him. Abigail is very talented for her age, but over the course of her career so far, we have seen veterans bait her into taking action and then capitalize on it. Eric Wilson, and introducing her opponent. She is the reigning and defending CWF Valor champion. Hailing from Swansea, Wales in the United Kingdom. Standing 5 feet, 9 inches tall and weighing in at 175 pounds. She is a member of the Upstarts, Abigail Dresden. The arena darkens and a mist begins to form around as Phoenix by Fall Out Boy plays over the PA. Abigail emerges from the mist, pausing at the entryway as she looks over the crowd and gestures to the Valor title belt around her waist, then takes a deep breath, looking at the ground before jumping as she pumps her arms to get the crowd fired up before she then unleashes a flurry of warm-up punches, ending it with a roar as she jumps into the air and punches the ground, a blast of pyro going off behind her as she makes her way down the entryway, greeting fans and the like before reaching the ring and jumping up onto the apron and slingshotting herself over the ropes, rolling up to her feet and throwing a few more warm-up punches before moving back to her corner to await the start of the fight. Ben Price, and here comes the defending Valor champion, Abigail Dresden. She has 3 successful defenses so far, and a chance tonight to make it 4. Eddie Vega. If she makes it to 5 defenses, she could have some interesting choices for top titles. Greg Salazar, Rob Riot, Cronin and Frank Windsor are the potentials. 2 of them will be champions. Ben Price, well, in theory, she could go for any title, which means she could, very likely, cash it in to demand a chance to reacquire the Legion titles. Eddie Vega, why would she do that? So her teammates can drop the ball again? Ben Price, they did not drop the ball. The Upstarts faced a very motivated Bastards team and they lost. This makes it 1-1 between the 2 teams. Eddie Vega, fine. Either way, she'd be foolish to waste the cash in on a team belt. Whether it's the CWF Conquest belt or the 4 Wins title, she should go for one of the top belts. Just my opinion. Abigail takes her belt off and hands it to Ashley Beaton, who raises the belt up and shows it off before handing it to Eric Wilson as he leaves the ring. Beaton has a word with the fighters, going over the rules, and then both fighters back up to their sides and Ashley Beaton calls for the bell. Ding! Ding! Justin Wingate begins the match by charging at Abigail. He tries for a clothesline but Abigail matrix dodges. Wingate sees this and tries for a Pele kick as he expects Abigail to come right back to her feet, but Abigail turns the matrix dodge into a back roll of sorts and comes to her feet as Wingate lands on the mat from the missed Pele kick. Wingate jumps up to his feet and turns to face Abigail just in time to be hit plush on the chin with a super kick from the young Valor champion. The kick sends Wingate back to the mat, shaking his head as the crowd cheers at the opening exchange of moves from the 2 wrestlers. Ben Price, was that a Matrix-style dodge into some sort of acrobatic move? Whatever it was, it gave Abigail the chance to score a big opening hit on the challenger in the match. Eddie Vega, Wingate's lucky there. That kick would have turned my lights out, that's for sure. Justin gets to his feet, shaking his head to clear the cobwebs, and then glances at Abigail, giving her a nod of respect before coming at her again. This time, as running a bit, he jumps and hits Abigail with a flying crossbody, bringing her to the mat. Ben Price, Justin Wingate acknowledging the skill of his opponent and then manages to catch her with a flying crossbody. Eddie Vega, I dunno, I never thought that move looks like it hurts. Ben Price, yeah? Maybe we can invite Justin over after the match and he can show you how much it hurts to have a 225-pound man slam into you. I bet you feel differently then. Eddie Vega, I will pass, thank you very much. Justin pulls Abigail to her feet and tries to whip her into the ropes, but Abigail reverses the attempt and charges after him, hitting Justin with a clothesline right as he hits the ropes, which sends him over the top rope into the floor below. Abigail wastes no time and charges back, rebounding off the ropes and running with a full head of steam, and executes a suicide dive through the ropes and hits Justin Wingate, both fighters tumbling onto the ground as the crowd comes to their feet. Ben Price, once more Abigail shows some of her mother's training as she goes for a suicide dive through the ropes and nails Justin Wingate. Eddie Vega, yeah, but those moves are way too high risk. Still, it looks nice when it works, I suppose. Both fighters get to their feet as Ashley Beaton begins counting. 1, 2. Abigail grabs Justin Wingate and tries to whip him towards the ring, but Justin reverses it and whips her towards the ring. Abby jumps up onto the apron and leaps off trying to hit a moonsault, but Justin counters by launching into a dropkick, sending both fighters to the floor as Abigail writhes in pain on the floor. Ashley Beaton continues her count. 3, 4. Justin gets up to his feet as he pulls her up to her feet and rolls her onto the mat and enters the ring after her. Ben Price, wow, fans. These two have some high-flying credentials and are showcasing them here tonight. Eddie Vega, Abigail also proved me right about the high-risk portion. Justin Wingate must have kicked her internal organs into another part of her body. With both fighters in the ring, Ashley stops the count and both fighters get to their feet, Abigail using the ropes to pull her up, and Justin Wingate comes over to Abigail and hits her several punches before picking her up and setting her on the top turnbuckle before climbing up after her and jumps up and hits a Hurricane Rana off the top turnbuckle. Crowd, holy shit. Ben Price, holy shit, indeed. These two are giving it their all, and Justin Wingate is showing that CWF talent relations continue to find top-tier talent. Eddie Vega, it looks to me like the champ is in trouble here. We could see her title reign end early here. Back in the ring, Justin gets up and plays to the ground. Justin Wingate, time to run it up. Justin pulls Abby to her feet and grabs hold of her and charges to one of the turnbuckles and runs up to the top and flips back, slamming Abby face first into the mat as he hits his version of the sliced bread number 2. Ben Price, run it up. Justin calls his shot and hits it. Eddie Vega, could we see a new champion? Justin pins Abigail and Ashley Beaton slides in to make the count. 1, 2. THRNO. Ben Price, Abigail kicks out just before the 3 count. Eddie Vega kicks out at the last split second. Justin gets to his feet, a confident look on his face as he pulls Abigail to her feet, only to be surprised when Abigail suddenly wraps Justin Wingate up in a small package. Ashley makes the count. 1. Justin Wingate breaks the pin. Ben Price, small package. Abigail caught Wingate sleeping there and nearly got a win. Eddie Vega, calm down Benny boy. She only got a 1 count and might not have gotten that if Ashley Beaton hadn't already been in a counting position. Both fighters come to their feet and Abigail hits Justin Wingate with a boot to the gut and then plants him with a DDT. Getting to her feet, Abigail stands, takes a deep breath and jumps into the air and hits a standing moonsault on Justin, once more going into a pinfall. Ben Price, standing moonsault from Abigail. The athletic ability of this girl. Eddie Vega, that was pretty impressive. Ashley Beaton slides in and begins the count. 1. Justin kicks out once more and Abigail sighs and shakes her head. Ben Price, another kick out, but it seems Abigail is forgetting that every kick out is forcing her opponent to expend energy. Eddie Vega, yeah, but each kick out affects morale too. The more your opponent kicks out, the more you start asking yourself what the hell you need to do to put him down. And likewise, the longer you let your opponent hang around, the more of a chance the opponent manages to win. Ben Price, that is a good observation, Eddie. Let's see how this impacts the match going forward. Eddie Vega, well, Abigail is already showing signs of frustration. We also need to ask ourselves how much the loss of the Legion titles is weighing on her. That was an unexpectedly emotional match for both Abigail and her father. Abigail looks over her opponent and decides to move into another option and grabs his arm before falling back onto the mat and locking in an armbar. Ashley remains on the mat and begins checking for the submission. Justin Wingate grits his teeth and turns towards Abigail, trying to relieve pressure on his elbow. Eventually, he is successful and breaks the hold by punching Abigail with his free arm until she breaks the hold. Ben Price, armbar submission hold, and this is an interesting tactic as it seems like Abigail is slowing down the pace of the match. This is not her usual tactical preference. Eddie Vega, and how do you think you managed to hold onto a championship belt for 5 defenses, Benny boy? You have to be able to keep your opponent guessing. The two fighters get back to their feet. Justin charges and hits Abigail with a clothesline, knocking her to the mat. Abigail gets to her feet and is hit with another clothesline. Justin then pulls Abigail to her feet and brings her to the mat with a snap suplex. Ben Price, Justin Wingate recovers from the submission attempt and is trying to turn things around and get back into the match. Eddie Vega, well, he has some momentum building. Justin pulls Abigail to her feet and the two trade punches. Abigail hitting a punch to the gut and then a European uppercut before punching him with a right cross. Justin responds with a punch of his own which brings Abigail to a knee. Abby hits a punch to the gut and another European uppercut before hitting a boot to the gut and plants Justin with a DDT. Ben Price, and now these two fighters resort to trading punches and brawling. Eddie Vega, yeah, but I give the edge to Justin. Or did you not notice how Abigail had to hit him 2 or 3 times to equal 1 hit from him? Ben Price, yeah, it's almost like Justin Wingate is 50 pounds or so heavier than Abigail and that is a significant difference in weight or something. Eddie Vega, I know that. But it begs the question of why Abigail decided to go toe-to-toe. In the ring, Abigail springboards off the ropes and tries for a moonsault, but Justin gets his knees up. Abby lands and groans in pain holding her ribs. Justin pulls her to her feet, but Abby hits him with another European uppercut and lifts him up as she turns and drops him stomach first across the top rope. Abigail then rebounds off the ropes and jumps into the air making a bicycle kick, hitting him in the side of the head. Ben Price, a show of strength from Abigail and then catches him in the side of the head with a bicycle kick, leaving him in a heap on the mat. Eddie Vega, which was pretty damn impressive. To be fair. Abby turns to face Justin as she stands in the middle of the ring. Justin charges and tries for a clothesline. Abby ducks under it and times her attack so that just as Justin turns to face her, she hits him with a Trouble in Paradise style kick sending Justin to the mat and brings a cheer from the crowd as the blow lands. Ben Price, flying dragon kick. Eddie Vega, not the move I would have used, but it works, I guess. Abigail makes a quick pin and Ashley Beaton slides in and begins counting. 1, 2. THRNO. Ben Price, Justin kicks out. Eddie Vega, Abigail will need something else to try and win. Abigail rebounds off the ropes and charges towards Justin, hopping over him and rebounds off the other end of the ropes. Justin gets to his feet and she hits him with her flipping piledriver move, which brings the crowd jumping to their feet. Ben Price, Swan Song. Abigail Dresden hits the Swan Song. It's all over. Eddie Vega, just because no one is kicked out of it yet, doesn't mean someone won't. Abby then moves and covers the prone opponent. Ashley Beaton drops down into position and counts. 1, 2, 3. Ding! Ding! Eric Wilson, ladies and gentlemen, the winner, by pinfall, and still the CWF Valor champion, Abigail Dresden. Ben Price, and Abigail now has 4 successful title defenses. Just one more and she will have to start thinking seriously about what title she will go after. And we already know that will be the man she won the title off of. Ira Waters, who also won a shot on the Vanguard pre-show. Eddie Vega, Cronin. I would really enjoy him getting shut up by a 17-year-old girl. Ben Price, and now, as Abby Dresden exits the ring, the Elite X is coming down from the top. Ben Price, well fans, it's time for one of the big matches of the evening. It might not be a main event, but it very well would have been on almost any other card. Eddie Vega, we're going to have another title going to the Bastards. Eddie Williams just has to beat up on a bunch of losers and it's gonna be great to see. Ben Price, so sure about that? Eddie Vega, sure enough that I dropped a big chunk of change to bet on Eddie to win it all. Eric Wilson, ladies and gentlemen, the next match is for the CWF Elite title and it is an Elite X rules match. When the match begins, there will be no rules. Weapons are legal. There are no pinfalls, countouts, submissions, or disqualifications. The match will end when one fighter ascends to the top of the ring and retrieves the CWF Elite Championship title. Ben Price, Eric Wilson laid it out, fans. This is only the second Elite X match in CWF history. The first saw Valora Salinas become the first ever CWF Elite Champion in a match that was pure chaos, partially because of the stormy seas that literally rocked the boat and partially because of Valora and her fellow competitors willing to do whatever was needed to get that belt. Eddie Vega, don't remind me of that damned boat, Benny boy. But yeah, that last match was 4 people fighting and doing whatever they could to win, and given the people in this match, I believe we can expect more of the same. Eric Wilson, introducing first. He hails from Patillas, Puerto Rico. Standing 6 feet, 10 inches tall and weighing in at 335 pounds. He is a member of the Upstarts, the Dreadnought Miguel Lanza Jr. As Disturbs Won't Back Down starts to play over the arena's PA system, the big man from Puerto Rico walks out. He raises up his left hand in a fist as he stands there one moment to take in whatever the crowd's reaction may be tonight. Once he's ready, he makes his way down to the ring, occasionally giving the fans what is a very high five for them. Once he gets to the ring, he reaches up and pulls himself to the apron via pulling the top rope. He then enters, stepping over the ropes and starts to get ready for this matchup. Ben Price, and here comes the giant of the Upstarts. Miguel Lanza Jr. After the Legion title match on Vanguard, he has to see this as a chance for redemption. To help get himself and his stable back on track. Vanguard was a bad night for the Upstarts. Tetsu Onifu lost the Tempest title and the 3 Upstarts as a group lost the Legion titles. Eddie Vega, I'm going to say it. The only member of the Upstarts pulling their weight is Abigail Dresden. She defended her Valor title. I believe she will get a 5th defense and she looks like she could be a legitimate contender for the Conquest or 4 Wins titles. Miguel? He seems to be the Billy Fowler of the Upstarts. Tetsuo Oni you can write off as just bad luck. Miguel seems to be the anchor weighing the Upstarts down. If he doesn't like me saying that, tonight is his chance to prove me wrong. Eric Wilson, introducing next. He hails from Norfolk, Virginia. Standing 5 feet, 10 inches tall, and weighing in at 190 pounds. He is a member of the Viper Squad, the Air Devil, Mad Morales. As the music hits, the arena darkens as the lights switch to a strobing red. As all the lights start to merge into one as it slowly goes up the ramp, it shows Morales, hands crossed under his navel and his head down. As the song hits the 28-second mark, the lights strobe on beat, as Morales hits a new pose each time until jumping and landing at the final strobe at 37 seconds. He then vibes out to the song, moving with a bounce on beat, rocking out with fans who join into his grunge aesthetic, jeering and taunting fans who boo or show dissatisfaction to his antics. He pauses at the ring and leaps and slides horizontal under the ring before kipping up with his index fingers pointed like horns on his head, holding the stance for a few seconds before climbing the opposite turnbuckle and pointing one finger like a horn on his head and one into the sky, Ben Price. Now when you think of people who seem built to win this type of match, Mad Morales seems to be a potential favorite. Eddie Vega, I mean, possibly. But I would also say his small size could work against him. I mean, one has to ask if he can take the punishment this match can throw at him. Eric Wilson, and introducing next. He is fresh from the road. Standing 6 feet 2 inches tall and weighing in at 245 pounds, Gabriel Tuck. Iron Wolf by Beast Wars begins as Gabriel Tuck walks out from the back. He howls to the fans, but they boo him back. He looks sad for a moment, but leans into the hate with a grin. He walks down to the ring, rolling under the bottom rope to get into the ring. He stands up and howls again, laughing this time as the fans respond with booing. He leans in his corner of the ring to wait for the match to start. Ben Price, Gabriel Tuck the next one out. Armand and Esmeralda keep putting him in high-profile matches. I would say they would be disappointed that he has not cashed in a single title opportunity, but maybe they have a different goal in mind for him. Eddie Vega, with Armand and Esmeralda, who knows? I do think Eddie might have been onto something only slightly off. He thought Kara had a crush on Gabriel Tuck. It might be the other way around. After all, Gabriel was the first to butter up Kara. Eric Wilson, introducing next. He hails from Cambridge, England in the United Kingdom. He stands 5 feet, 11 inches tall and weighs in at 215 pounds. He is a member of the Bastards, and is also the 4 Wins Maelstrom champion. Eddie Williams. The ramp starts to flood with smoke. A figure appears in the entranceway with his arms crossed. A series of fireworks go off along the top of the entrance ramp. The light adjusts back to normal. Eddie starts to walk down the ramp. He slowly and methodically makes his way toward the ring, bathing in the reaction of the fans within the arena. Eddie enters the ring standing with his arms raised and fireworks go off from the 4 turnbuckles. Walking over to the furthest turnbuckle and climbs up to the middle rope. He looks out across the crowd. As his music dies down, he waits near the corner, pacing back and forth ready for the match to start. Ben Price, and now, we come to one of the fighters who has to be considered one of the favorites to win the match, Eddie Williams. The Maelstrom title he has is a hardcore title, so one has to think he has an edge in this kind of match. Eddie Vega, he's also one of the Bastards and his win-loss record in CWF is matched only by the likes of Abigail Dresden. But he is definitely one of the elite, so why not be the elite champion too? Eric Wilson, and finally, introducing the last competitor. Hailing from Dresden, Germany. She stands 6 feet tall and weighs in at 205 pounds. She is one half of the CWF Tag Team and 4 Wins Dyad champions and is a member of Bad Company. Kara Reinhardt. The lights dim and Itchel by Rammstein plays over the PA as Kara makes her way out from the backstage area, pausing at the top of the entryway as she looks down at the ring. She makes her way to the ring with a slow, methodical pace and climbs into the ring, climbing between the ropes and making her way to her corner where she holds up a hand and then begins warming up, throwing a few warm-up punches in her corner. Ben Price, and we have the last of our 5 competitors enter the ring. Kara Reinhardt in the ring, and we are just about ready to get started. Eddie Vega, and if you made it this far without falling asleep or getting distracted by something else, you deserve a reward. Scott Jones, the referee, relays the rules of the match to the fighters while Eric Wilson heads over to his area at ringside and, once everyone signals they've heard and understand the rules, Scott Jones calls for the bell. Ding! Ding! Kara and Eddie square off against each other, locking up, though almost as soon as they lock up, Kara plants a knee to the gut of Eddie Williams and hits him on the back with a few clubbing forearms and ends her combo with a European uppercut that snaps Eddie Williams up to a standing position, and Miguel Lanza Jr. grabs Eddie and turns him to face Miguel before Miguel hits Eddie Williams with a belly-to-belly suplex. Miguel pulls Eddie to his feet and whips him into the ropes. He and Kara pick the man up and plant him on the mat with a double spinebuster. Ben Price, Miguel Lanza Jr. and Kara waste no time double-teaming Eddie and starting to take the fight to him. Eddie Vega, now, if there were 2 Bastards in this match double-teaming Kara or Miguel, you'd be complaining about how the Bastards can't win a fight by themselves. Ben Price, possibly. But I'm going to file this under karma being a bitch. Eddie is getting a glimpse of what opponents of the Bastards feel like. Eddie Vega, you're so biased. It really is unprofessional, Benny boy. Ben Price, you literally placed a bet on the Bastards to win. Eddie Vega, yeah, but. I mean. Well, shit. Guess we're both biased then. While Kara and Miguel take on Eddie Williams, Gabriel Tuck charges and knocks Mad Morales down with a clothesline. Tuck continues running and rebounds off the ropes and slides into Morales with a baseball slide. Getting to his feet, Tuck jumps into the air and drives a punch into Morales. Ben Price, Gabriel Tuck also wasting no time getting things started as he starts the attack off against Mad Morales right away. Eddie Vega, it was a decent enough start, but I'm sure Gabriel will find a way to screw it up. Kara pulls Eddie Williams to his feet. He throws a punch, but Kara blocks the punch and the two trade knife-edged chops for a bit before Kara boots Eddie Williams in the gut and whips him towards Miguel Lanza Jr., who charges forward and hits Eddie Williams with a massive spear. Ben Price, my God. Talk about breaking a man in half. Kara sent Williams towards him, serving him up on a platter, and Miguel Lanza Jr. nearly speared him into another province. Eddie Vega, and if Eddie Williams and Frank Windsor had done that to Kara, you would scream bloody murder. In another section of the ring, Gabriel Tuck and Mad Morales have both gotten to their feet and have begun trading blows once more. This is cut off when Mad Morales kicks Gabriel in the groin and then hits a roundhouse kick that sends Gabriel Tuck to the mat. Mad Morales wastes no time and springboards off the ropes into an Ase moonsault as he lands on Tuck. Ben Price, Mad Morales uses a tactic that would be underhanded in most matches, but this is an anything-goes environment and a nice Ase moonsault by him. Mad Morales is a talented high flyer. I would like to see him rely more on his skill and less on jumping opponents backstage. Eddie Vega, hey Benny boy, like Val herself says. The ends justify the means. As long as he's successful, that's the main thing. Eddie Williams rolls out of the ring. Kara sees this and follows him. Eddie makes his way over to the barricades by the crowd and, seeing Kara coming, he grabs a drink from the crowd and throws it in Kara's face. Kara stumbles back from surprise and Eddie grabs and whips Kara, throwing her into the steel steps. But before he can really follow up on his offense, Miguel comes off the ring apron and hits Eddie Williams with a double axe handle smash. Ben Price, Eddie taking the fight outside the ring, and, once more, fans, no count-outs, fighting outside is permitted, though perhaps not the best idea given you're further away from the title belt. Eddie Vega, yeah, but you can use the outside ring area to wear down your opponents too. Mad Morales climbs up to the tower attached to the corners of the ring and begins climbing up. He makes the way up to the cables and slowly makes his way walking over the cables and is advancing on the title, but he stops, looking down at Gabriel Tuck. He hesitates, appearing to be talking to himself, debating on what to do when he suddenly leaps from the cables and hits a sentence-style splash onto Gabriel Tuck, sending both men to the mat as Gabriel had just gotten to his feet, the move bringing the crowd to its feet cheering. Crowd, holy shit. Holy shit. Ben Price, I really can't put it any better than the crowd did, folks. The former elite champion, Valora Salinas, must certainly have approved of that move. Mad Morales from the cables onto Gabriel Tuck. Eddie Vega, he could have won the damn match. Why would he choose to do that? Miguel Lanza Jr. looks up and sees the airborne move from Mad Morales and makes his way back to the ring, sliding into the ring. As he gets to his feet, he grabs Mad Morales, lifting him up over his head and heaves him over the top rope into Eddie Williams, which sends both men to the ground. Miguel steps over the rope and drops down to the floor to follow up on the attack. Ben Price, my God. Miguel showing off his strength as he turns Mad Morales into a weapon and throws him over the top rope and into Eddie Williams. Eddie Vega, take back my criticism of him. At least while he's in hearing distance. Kara Reinhardt wastes little time and pulls Eddie Williams to his feet, hitting him with a series of 3 punches to Eddie's body and ending with a European uppercut. Eddie kicks Kara in the gut and counters with a European uppercut of his own, and the two fighters trade punches and kicks with each other, making their way over near the timekeeper's area. Gabriel Tuck rolls out onto the floor and makes his way over too, hitting Eddie Williams in the back. Eddie turns to face Gabriel and the two of them trade punches. Gabriel hits Eddie with a haymaker. He turns to face Kara, who decks him, and Kara and Gabriel ping-pong Eddie between them with punches before Eddie eventually ducks a punch from Gabriel and kicks him in the groin and then kicks behind him, catching Kara in the gut. He spins and knocks Kara down with a clothesline and then grabs Tuck and slams his face into the top of the barricades. Ben Price, Kara and Eddie are getting close to the timekeeper's area, and both of them were throwing skilled hands. Then Gabriel came over and Eddie got stuck in a game of pinball for a bit. Eddie Vega, and outnumbered 2-1, he still won and took both attackers down. The skill of this man, I tell you. Eddie Williams plays to the crowd and shows off, flexing for them, but Miguel breaks up the celebration with a giant forearm to the back. He turns Eddie to face him, lifts him up in another display of strength and walks around before planting him with a cradle DDT. Ben Price, but the numbers game was too much for Eddie Williams as Miguel comes over and hits a cradle DDT in another big display of his strength. Eddie Vega, this is why I bet on Eddie Williams. He's so dangerous, most of the other fighters are trying to knock him out. Mad Morales jumps onto and springboards off the top rope and nails Miguel Lanza Jr. with a missile dropkick that sends the bigger man stumbling into the barricades, which he uses to prop himself up and keep on his feet. Morales is quick to follow up the attack, moving over and hammering him with a series of punches. He backs up and runs forward and jumps up for a body splash, but Miguel catches him in midair and throws him over the barricades into the crowd. Crowd, holy shit. Holy shit. Ben Price, this match is becoming dangerous not just for the wrestlers but for the fans as well. Eddie Vega, those fans at ringside just got closer to the action than they expected. Gabriel Tuck gets to his feet and makes his way over to the area where Eddie Williams and Kara are brawling. Eddie Williams kicks Kara in the gut and had grabbed his Maelstrom title to hit her with it, but seeing Gabriel Tuck, Eddie adjusts and cracks Gabriel Tuck in the face with the belt, sending him to the floor. He then turns back, intending to hit Kara too, but Kara cuts him off with a boot to the gut which doubles Eddie over and causes him to drop the belt, and Kara hits a DDT, dropping him head first onto the title. Ben Price, Eddie Williams using his hardcore-themed title as a weapon. Though perhaps he should have hit Kara with the belt and then come to deal with Gabriel Tuck second. But I'm not a wrestler. Eddie Vega, yeah, I mean obviously he thought Gabriel was the more present threat. But still, a slight miscalculation, but I don't fault him for using a hardcore title belt as a weapon in a hardcore-themed match. Miguel Lanza Jr. steps over the barricades to go after Morales and throws him back into the ringside area. But a fan comes up behind Miguel Lanza Jr. and hits Miguel in the back with a wooden bat. He follows this up with a few more strikes before removing his hood, revealing Chris Ross. He swings again, but Miguel catches the bat. Ross kicks him in the chest, causing him to let go of the bat, and then Chris Ross cracks Miguel in the head with the crowd comes to their feet as Nathan O'Connell marches out from the back wielding a kendo stick, and he heads over to Ross. Williams comes in and tries to attack, but Nathan kicks him in the gut and cracks him on the back with the kendo stick and moves on. Ross sees Nathan coming and runs off, Nathan chasing him off as Abigail and Tetsu Onifor come over to check on Miguel and help him to the back. Ben Price, a couple of cameos here. Chris Ross attacks Miguel. Nathan O'Connell coming in to chase him off. I'm told Nathan is quite adept at using that kendo stick. Eddie Vega, yeah, but Kara will have to fight her own battles now. The upstarts ran and hid, and their big tough giant ain't so tough. Ben Price, dude. If you got hit once with a bat, you'd cry for a month, spend 3 more recovering from it and another 2 milking it for compensation pay. Eddie Vega, yeah. You're probably right. Ben Price, also, it's worth noting that Nathan O'Connell awaits the winner of this match. Eddie Vega, if he was smart, he would have stayed out here and tried to influence the match a bit more. Kara makes her way over to Eddie Williams as he gets back to his feet. she turns him to face her and hits him with a European uppercut and then punches him in the gut and pelts him with a series of well-aimed punches up and down the torso. Eddie Williams cuts her off with a knee to the gut and he clubs her on the back with his forearm and then whips her into the steel steps, Kara hitting them hard and slumping to the ground. Eddie comes over and pulls her to her feet and rolls her into the ring, coming in after her. Ben Price, I have to say, we were concerned about Kara's ability to fight in a free-for-all environment. She has been completely limited to more traditional wrestling matches so far, but she's showing an ability to adapt and handle herself. Eddie Vega, yeah, I can get on board with that comment. I still don't think she'll win, but she's definitely showing an ability to hold her own in this kind of match. But she has also had a lot of help from Miguel Lanza Jr. We'll see how she holds up now that she doesn't have him to help her out. Mad Morales and Gabriel Tuck get to their feet. Gabriel Tuck picks up the Maelstrom title and charges forward and hits Mad Morales with the belt, knocking him down to the floor, before tossing the title belt aside. Tuck pulls Morales and leads him over to the commentary desk and bounces Mad Morales' face off the desk. Then again. Tuck tries for a third time but Morales counters with an elbow to the ribs of Tuck and bounces his head off the desk. Mad Morales, come here motherfucker. Mad Morales leads Tuck over to the steel steps and slams his face into them as well before rolling him into the ring and coming in after him. Ben Price, a little closer to the action than we would have liked there, fans. But at least the 4 remaining competitors are back in the ring. Eddie Vega, I demand hazard pay if the wrestlers are going to get that close. Kara looks up and decides to make a go for it as she climbs up, making her way up to the top turnbuckle and then moving onto the tower before going to the cables, the transition from the tower to the cables taking her a couple of seconds before she begins making her way, trying to go hand over hand. On the mat, Eddie Williams gets to his feet as well and, seeing Kara making her way for the belt, she jumps up and grabs her ankles and forces her to stop as he climbs up her legs a bit. The two fighters struggle with each other but finally Kara is unable to hold on anymore and her and Eddie come to the mat as Eddie transitions to a powerbomb-like move, diving Kara into the mat hard. Ben Price, Kara tries to go for the belt and then Eddie Williams intercepts her and powerbombed her from a bit below the cables. Eddie Vega, I will bet she feels that later. Eddie Williams starts to get up after the big move and Mad Morales comes over, cutting Eddie off with a couple of punches before hitting a DDT driving Eddie Williams head first into Kara. After the move, he pulls Kara to her feet, he tries for a haymaker but Kara blocks the punch, headbutts the man and hits him with a European uppercut. Mad Morales counters with a kick to her gut. He then grabs Kara and hits her with alternating knee lifts and then a back elbow. He tries to finish off the combo with the jumping high knee but Gabriel Tuck grabs him as he starts the jump and hits him with a German suplex. Ben Price, so creative offense from Mad Morales as he DDTs Eddie Williams into Kara. He then tried to capitalize on the big fall Kara took from the cables but Gabriel Tuck came in and made the save. Eddie Vega, maybe Eddie Williams was off the mark suggesting Kara had a crush on Gabriel Tuck, maybe Tuck has the crush on Kara. Ben Price, you've said that a few times before. Got anything original? Eddie Vega, yeah, Tuck had better pull his head out of his ass and start mounting some offense. I'd say win, but let's be honest. Not even Armand and Esmeralda expect him to win, but he had better showcase he has some use to Armand and Esmeralda. After what we saw in the tag match, it's clear that Armand and Esmeralda are going to start expecting results from their wrestlers. The Bastards. The Upstarts. Bad Company. Viper Squad. CWF already has a number of teams that produce results. With 2 other owners, Armand and Esmeralda can't afford to have their team dropping the ball or else Team Von Kraus will find themselves irrelevant. Eddie rolls out of the ring and reaches under the ring, rooting around for something. Finally finding what he is looking for, he pulls out a table and slides it into the ring, coming in after it and then sets the table up. After he sets up the table, he looks around and sees an opening with the others fighting still and he decides to make a run for the title as he makes his way over to a corner, and climbs up, making his way first to the top turnbuckle and then climbs along the tower and then makes his way up to the cables. Kara sees this and dodges out of the brawl, leaving Gabriel Tuck and Mad Morales to brawl as she makes her way over to one of the towers and climbs up, moving above the cables and stands on top of the cables, carefully making her way towards the middle of the setup where the title was, slowly making her way over the title belt. Eddie Williams sees this and hesitates, looking at the title, and then decides to pull himself up. He takes a swing at Kara, but she dodges and grabs Eddie Williams. She looks down at the ring, sighing as she contemplates what's next and lifts Eddie Williams up and hits her variation of the rock bottom from the platform above the ring, both fighters crashing through the table into the ring, neither fighter moving as they hit the ground and lie still on the wreckage of the table. Crowd, holy shit! Holy shit! Holy shit! Ben Price, my God! They're dead. I promise you fans, I think Kara and Eddie Williams have to be out cold right now. How the hell can they survive that? Eddie Vega, well, people wondered why Eddie might have considered Kara the biggest threat to him in this match. I think the crazy bitch just showed us why he would think that. Mad Morales and Gabriel Tuck stop fighting as Eddie and Kara fall from above the ring and crash through the table. Mad Morales walks over to the wreckage and kicks Eddie Williams in the ribs. Morales half pulls, half drags Eddie to the ropes and throws him out to the floor before jumping up onto the ropes and springboarding off the ropes and hitting Eddie with a moonsault. Gabriel Tuck makes his way over and looks at Kara and then sees his chance to go for the belt and makes his way over the turnbuckles and begins his ascent to try and get the belt. Ben Price, Mad Morales wastes no time in attacking Eddie to ensure he stays down. I thought Gabriel Tuck was going to check on Kara, but he seems to be of the mind to try and take advantage of the situation. Eddie Vega, well, I'm surprised Gabriel Tuck didn't stab Kara in the back there. But I suppose he sort of is, in a way, by making his way for the title belt. Mad Morales sees Tuck climbing up and he begins scrambling up after him. Eddie Williams slowly climbs back into the ring as Kara stirs and coughs, spitting a bit of blood up as she struggles to get to her feet. Eddie Williams comes in and swings a punch at him. Kara, thinking fast, grabs a shard of table and blocks the fist with it before spinning and cracking Eddie Williams in the head with it, knocking him down and falling into a sitting position from the force of the swing. Ben Price, that's how real this fight is, folks. How badly they want this title. Eddie Williams and Kara definitely have to have internal injuries. They can barely stand, and Eddie Vega, I'll say it. Kara is earning my respect. I know I cracked jokes about her brother carrying her and in this match Miguel Lanza carrying her, but she's out there by herself and is still hanging in. Don't get me wrong. I put money on the bastard, Eddie Williams, and I still am sure he's going to win. But I think Kara is earning her stripes in this match. Ben Price, you're really giving her credit because Eddie Williams seems to be considering her the main threat? Eddie Vega, yes. But I was trying to sound unbiased. Gabriel Tuck makes his way hand over hand to the title and reaches out, touching the belt with one of his hands. Unfortunately, Mad Morales has climbed up as well and has pulled himself up onto the cables and takes a deep breath before running along the cable and jumping off, catching Gabriel Tuck and hitting a tornado-style DDT from the platform. Once more the two fighters hitting a high-risk move from above the ring lie motionless on the mat as they both writhe on the mat. Crowd, this is awesome. Ben Price, totally agree with the fans there, folks. These wrestlers are laying it all on the line and it can be argued careers are at risk of being shortened here. Eddie Vega, at risk, I would say that's almost a guarantee at this point. Kara jumps as the two other wrestlers hit the mat near her and Eddie. She cracks Mad Morales with the shard of table before tossing it aside and pulls Eddie up to his feet. She measures him and hits him with a knife-edge chop. Eddie Williams returns the chop and he and Kara stand toe-to-toe and trade chops. Eddie Williams hits a European uppercut and then grabs Kara, whipping him into the ropes and moves towards her, getting her off the rebound and hits her with a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker. Ben Price, I don't know how those two are even standing at the moment, let alone continuing to fight. Eddie Vega, will to win. Determination. Mad Morales crawls along the mat to the ropes and tries to pull himself up, slowly getting to his feet and leans heavily on the ropes before finally stepping away from the ropes and trying to pull Gabriel Tuck to his feet, and then throws him through the ropes to the floor and nods to himself, seemingly arguing with himself. Ben Price, is he talking to himself? I mean, that's a bit weird, right? Eddie Vega, only if he answers himself. Ben Price, look at him. He's clearly having an argument with himself. Eddie Vega, then yeah. He's fucking nuts. Kara breaks up the argument as she charges in and hits Mad Morales with a clothesline. She then pulls Morales to his feet and brings him to the mat with a belly-to-belly suplex. Eddie Williams breaks up Kara's offense by hitting her from behind and then leads her to one of the corner, lifting her up onto the top turnbuckle, climbing up after and slamming her head into the metal tower a few times before picking her up and hitting a German suplex from the top turnbuckle to the mat below, Eddie releasing the suplex and then diving off the top turnbuckle and hitting a diving headbutt onto Kara. Ben Price, we got everyone grouped together for a moment. When the dust clears. Well, I was going to say Eddie Williams alone was left standing, but that isn't exactly accurate. Eddie Vega, we can say he won the exchange, bouncing her head off the towers and hitting a released German suplex from the top turnbuckle and diving headbutt. Kara and Eddie Williams slowly get up, actually kind of leaning against each other as they stand. Eddie slams his knee into Kara, who responds with a European uppercut. Eddie tries for a haymaker and Kara ducks under the blow and grabs Eddie, bringing him to the mat with a German suplex. She maintains the hold and brings him to his feet before hitting a second German suplex, once more maintaining the hold, and pulls him up and hits the third German suplex as she comes to her feet, wiping some blood from her head, and drags him to his feet, tossing him out of the ring. Ben Price, Kara manages to hit the triple German suplex, which she calls 1, 2, 3. Eddie Vega, very creative, counting to 3 in German. I'd say the count would be proud, but I'm pretty sure Sesame Street isn't shown in Germany. Mad Morales and Gabriel Tuck both begin to get to their feet. Kara, looking around, decides to try for the belt and begins climbing up towards the cables. Ben Price, Kara looks to be heading up for the title belt now. Eddie Vega, yeah, but I doubt she has much left in the tank. On the outside of the ring, Gabriel Tuck runs and jumps into the air, hitting his version of the curb stomp on Eddie Williams. Meanwhile, Kara reaches the cables and goes hand over hand, making her way towards the title belt. Ben Price, dirty stomp by Gabriel Tuck. He adds some punishment to ensure Eddie Williams is out of the picture. Eddie Vega, true, but Mad Morales is climbing up to try and stop Kara from getting the belt. Indeed, as Eddie says it, Mad Morales runs along the cables once more and jumps off, catching Kara just as she gets her hand on the belt and bringing her to the mat with a Hurricane Rana-like move that once again has the ring looking like a major disaster has taken place. Crowd, holy shit. Holy shit. Ben Price, once more the Daredevil lives up to his name and has once more intercepted a would-be title winner. But surely these high-risk moves have to hurt him as much as his opponents. Eddie Vega, you would think so, but the lunatic keeps doing them. Mad Morales climbs into a mounted position on Kara and begins hammering her with punches. Gabriel Tuck whips Eddie Williams into the steel steps and comes into the ring, kicking Morales in the face, knocking him off of Kara, Gabriel returning the favor and kicking and punching the prone form of Mad Morales. Ben Price, well, now we've returned to brawling. Which actually seems less high risk than most of the offense so far. Eddie Vega, easier to call too. Eddie Williams reaches in and grabs Kara's feet and pulls her out of the ring, and the two once more trade punches on the outside, making their way to the commentary table and past it. Both fighters have the same idea, grabbing steel chairs and swinging them, the chairs hitting together and causing both fighters to drop their chairs as the shockwave goes through their hands. Eddie bounces Kara's head off the secondary announce table. Kara fights back and puts Eddie onto the backup announce table with a hip toss. Ben Price, Kara and Eddie are making their way over to the empty announce table. Eddie Vega, what's that for anyways? Ben Price, well, potentially in case of special guest announcers or if the Vanguard team joins us for an event. Maybe a backup in case inconsiderate wrestlers destroy our desk? Eddie Vega, all good options, I suppose. Kara climbs up onto the table after Eddie, pulling him to his feet and planting him through the announce table with her Michinoku driver variation. Crowd, this is awesome. Crowd 2, holy shit. Crowd 3, CWF. Ben Price, Dresden driver through the secondary announce table. Let's hope we won't have needed that by the end of the night. Eddie Vega, but that's a stupid move, Benny boy. The only thing Kara has done is remove her and Eddie Williams from the match. In the ring, Mad Morales finally gets some space to breathe, courtesy of a low blow and a DDT to Gabriel Tuck. Morales decides to get while the getting is good and begins climbing up towards the cables. As that happens, Miguel Lanza Jr. comes out from the backstage area and makes his way over to Kara. He scoops her up and drapes her over his shoulder and makes his way back towards the ring. Ben Price, Miguel Lanza Jr. He's apparently not done yet. Eddie Vega, he left the match. He can't just return. Mad Morales closes in and is almost at the title belt when he sees Gabriel Tuck start to stir. He pauses, once more arguing with himself before sighing and pulling himself up onto the top of the platform, before jumping off and landing on Gabriel Tuck with a send and splash-like maneuver. Ben Price, okay, I am officially out of explanations and theories as to why Morales doesn't win the match. Eddie Vega, I know. I mean, I bet on Eddie, so I don't want him to win, but still. He's had at least 25 chances to win. Miguel reaches the ring and helps Kara inside, coming in after her. Seeing the resulting carnage, Miguel lifts Kara up onto his shoulders and walks towards the title. Once more, Kara has her hands on the title. She begins to unfasten it and Eddie Williams comes in and hits Miguel with a chop block to the back of the knee, causing Miguel to topple and to bring Kara to the mat hard with high. Ben Price, you know we talked about how determined Kara and Miguel were to prevent Eddie Williams from winning the belt. He seems just as determined to ensure they don't win either. Eddie Vega, that was a little close for comfort, but Eddie Williams comes in and makes the clutch save. Mad Morales rolls out to the ringside area and makes his way to the steel structures by the corners and begins climbing up while the events in the ring happen. He walks along the wires and has another debate with himself, but this time, he sits on the ropes, hangs upside down and finishes unlatching the belt that Kara had started, yanking it off the platform. Scott Jones sees this and calls for the bell. Ding! Ding! Ben Price, he's done it. We finally have a new elite champion. Eddie Vega, damn it. All that money. Gone. Eric Wilson, ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the match and the new CWF Elite Champion. Mad Morales. Ben Price, well, my partner's displeasure at losing his bet aside, this was a hell of a match and in the end, we finally have a successor to Valora Salinas as Elite Champion. I dare say she might even approve since Mad Morales appears to be very much in her daredevil mold and just as willing to do what it takes to win. Eddie Vega, true enough, Benny boy. First Valora and now Mad Morales. This belt is starting to develop a reputation for needing to be a bit crazy to get your hands on. But now, Morales better hope he heals fast as Father Nathan waits in the wings. Ben Price, that he does. Abigail Dresden also has a guaranteed elite title shot too. All in all, this division could get real interesting, especially since I doubt Miguel Lanza Jr., Gabriel Tuck, Kara Reinhart or Eddie Williams are going to just shrug their shoulders and walk away. Eddie Vega, don't forget Chris Ross. We have some very interesting times ahead indeed. Eddie Vega, now we've had some cool matches so far tonight, but we've got some great main events also to come. Ben Price, so what's next on the list? Eddie Vega, not sure to be Han. Cameras pan around the sea of anxious people who are cheering loudly at the showing of respect towards the bastards. Suddenly, the cheering explodes as the loudspeakers crackle, all attention devoted to these very special proceedings. A large British flag unfolds from the rafters and hangs majestically over the ring area, each ear expecting to hear the music of Frank Windsor. The big screen started to show all sorts of British iconic sights. Children playing in the streets, football matches, police in the streets. The first few bars of Hello by Adele blares out before it seamlessly mixes into Welcome to the Circus by Five Finger Death Punch. Brilliant silver strobe lights flash through the arena as rainbow-colored confetti falls from the rafters. The screen now goes to show footage of Frank in his silver Mercedes convertible cruising the streets of Bradford, Yorkshire. The curtains at the top of the rampway are pushed open and they emerge. The fans give a mixed reaction as Frank pushes through the curtains dressed in his leopard print fur coat. Frank saunters down the rampway, eyeing the crowd. Windsor exhales slowly as he looks at the crowd before smiling and acknowledging the fans in attendance with a royal wave. He reaches the ringside area and uses the stairs to ascend onto the apron. Looking around momentarily, Windsor mounts the turnbuckle adjacent to the stairs, resting his left foot on the top rope. With a brief bow, Windsor lowers the hood of his leopard fur coat and gazes around the facility, soaking in the numerous reactions from the crowd. Upon listening to their calls, he hops down into the ring and takes off his fur coat, revealing the 3 belts he has on, and hands it to the ring crew. He then stands and waits for someone in the ring crew to hand him a microphone. Eddie Vega, looks like Windsor wants to talk. Frank Windsor, do you see this? Do you all see this? He holds up the trio belt he had won on the pre-show as the crowds cheer. Frank Windsor, the bastards couldn't be screwed out of the trio championship belts a few months back, but now we screwed the management over with getting what was supposed to be ours. He walks towards the camera and flips the bird at it. Frank Windsor, tonight, the return of the bastards being the power behind the throne has begun. Tonight I will be facing off against the current franchise champion of this promotion for that belt that he carries around his waist so arrogantly. He pauses as he looks around. Frank Windsor, Cronin, you think that you're a great champion, but the rest of the world knows the truth, don't they? You are just some mug that Valora thinks she has got by the short and curly's bruv. Robbie was in your place for a while, mate, even to the point she was dropping her nuts on his forehead all the time. A chant of dropped her nuts goes around the arena. Frank Windsor, hey Cronin, if it weren't for Valora you'd probably be just in some slum in your hometown, bruv, but she wanted someone to control, but she knows that you're not in control of your own freaking faculties, bruv, which is why she took things into her own hands. A smirk crosses his face. Frank Windsor, she doesn't trust you to hold up your end, bruv. Can you really think that you're a real champion in this match tonight? She's going to be the referee, mate, and I know that's only to make sure you walk out of the cell with the belt. He shakes his head. Frank Windsor, chicken much? Oh come on bruv, this is complete BS, mate. Hell in a Cell will be fun. Last man standing will make it interesting, but making her the referee just makes you out to be a freaking cock-womble coward, bruv. A chant of cock-womble coward goes around the arena. Frank Windsor, I don't care, bruv. I'm still going to take that belt off of your dead corpse tonight, easily. He drops the microphone and leaves the ring. Ben Price, he's got a lot to say tonight. Eddie Vega, I wouldn't be surprised if we have a new t-shirt with cock-womble coward on it by next show. Ben Price, or even a Valora one. Eddie Vega, now that would be funny. Ben Price, here we go, fans. The first of our double main events of the evening. Frank Windsor and Cronin are about to be locked in a cell to determine the Conquest champion. Eddie Vega, finally, the bastards will take home that big title. And Valora has made a mistake and she'll have to pay for it by being the one who will have to put the title on Windsor's waist. Ben Price, well, Cronin can win. He does seem motivated, and thus far he is the only fighter in CWF history to successfully defend the title. Eddie Vega, that was against Iro Waters. Doesn't count. Like Rob Riot said, these titles have a certain prestige to them, you can't just defend them against any riffraff that wants a shot. These title shots have to be earned. Eric Wilson, ladies and gentlemen, the next match is match 1 of our double main event of the evening. Introducing first, the special guest referee. She is the creative director of production and booking for Conquest Wrestling Federation, the hardcore icon, Valora Salinas. Bring It by Trapped plays over the PA and the crowd comes to their feet as Valora walks out from the backstage area dressed in the standard ref uniform. She makes her way down to the ring and climbs in, putting in an earpiece that leads into a mic. After turning it on, she nods. Valora Salinas, testing. Valora listens on the earpiece and nods. Ben Price, and here she is, one of the 3 owners of CWF. Valora Salinas. We still don't know why she chose to insert herself in this match. I would have thought she'd put herself in Riot's match if anything. Eddie Vega, what if Valora and Windsor have been running a long con and she's here to help screw Cronin like he and Greg Salazar screwed Windsor and Riot at the last pay-per-view? Ben Price, I suppose that is possible, but highly unlikely. Eddie Vega, a man can hope. Can you imagine if the bastards actually had an ally on the owner's board? Eric Wilson, the next match is set for one fall and it will be fought in a Hell in a Cell and under last man standing rules, and it is for the CWF Conquest Championship. Introducing first. He hails from Bradford, Yorkshire, England in the United Kingdom. Standing 6 feet, 2 inches tall and weighing in at 225 pounds. He is a member of the Bastards. Frank Windsor. Cameras pan around the sea of anxious people who are cheering loudly at the showing of respect towards the Bastards. Suddenly, the cheering explodes as the loudspeakers crackle, all attention devoted to these very special proceedings. A large British flag unfolds from the rafters and hangs majestically over the ring area, each ear expecting to hear the music of Frank Windsor. The big screen started to show all sorts of British iconic sights. Children playing in the streets, football matches, police in the streets. The first few bars of Hello by Adele blares out before it seamlessly mixes into Welcome to the Circus by Five Finger Death Punch. Brilliant silver strobe lights flash through the arena as rainbow-colored confetti falls from the rafters. The screen now goes to show footage of Frank in his silver Mercedes convertible cruising the streets of Bradford, Yorkshire. The curtains at the top of the rampway are pushed open and they emerge. The fans give a mixed reaction as Frank pushes through the curtains dressed in his leopard print fur coat. Frank saunters down the rampway, eyeing the crowd. Windsor exhales slowly as he looks at the crowd before smiling and acknowledging the fans in attendance with a royal wave. He reaches the ringside area and uses the stairs to ascend onto the apron. Looking around momentarily, Windsor mounts the turnbuckle adjacent to the stairs, resting his left foot on the top rope. With a brief bow, Windsor lowers the hood of his leopard fur coat and gazes around the facility, soaking in the numerous reactions from the crowd. Upon listening to their calls, and hops down into the ring and takes off his fur coat, revealing the 2 belts he has on, and hands it to the ring crew. He then stands and unclips both of the belts and hands them to the ring crew. Looks up at the rampway waiting for his opponent. Ben Price, and here comes the challenger, Frank Windsor. As most fans know, this match was originally expected to be Rob Riot versus Cronin, but Frank Windsor cashed in his title shot from 5 successful Valor title defenses in and chose to take a swing at Cronin. Eddie Vega, are you saying that's a bad thing? Ben Price, certainly not. The rules are the rules. Frank cashed the shot in and CWF ownership decided to allow the match to go ahead tonight. Eddie Vega, that's right, most people in his spot would have done the same thing. Eric Wilson, and introducing his opponent. Hailing from Dresden, Germany. He stands 6 feet 8 inches tall and weighs in at 275 pounds. He is the reigning and defending CWF Conquest champion and is a member of Bad Company. He is the German suplex machine, Cronin Reinhardt. The lights in the arena go out, plunging the arena into darkness. Song by Rammstein plays, and when the song hits the chorus for the first time, a single spotlight comes on to show Cronin standing at the top of the entryway, bringing the crowd to their feet as he taps the CWF Conquest title draped over his shoulder, and he makes his way down to the ring. Climbing into the ring and makes his way over to the middle of the ring. Frank Windsor points at the belt and his lips can easily be read as he says the belt will be his. Cronin responds by asking Eric for the mic and accepting it when it's handed to him, looking at Frank Windsor. Cronin Reinhardt, one last time. What's going to happen to you tonight? You asked for this. Not me. I wash my hands of your blood. Ben Price, that was chilling. We see no signs of the usual fairly easy-going Cronin. The champ seems intensely focused. Eddie Vega, Frank Windsor looks confident too. I think we're going to get a great match. Valora takes the belt from Cronin and holds it up, before handing it to Eric Wilson. Valora Salinas, all right. Now, given that I don't really like either of you, you should both get ready for pain and punishment. Now, the rules. The bastards and all their associates are banned from ringside. Likewise, Bad Company, the upstarts and all of their associates are banned from ringside. Secondly, as evidenced by the huge cage over our heads, you two will be fighting in a cell. Thirdly, this is a last man standing match. No pinfalls. No submissions. When you believe you have done enough damage to keep your opponent down, you will ask me to begin the count. I will then begin a 10 count. To continue the fight, you must stand on your own 2 feet, without assistance, and convince me you can continue the fight. Now, we went through a lot to get this set up and I expect to see blood. You two had better bring the violence. Ben Price, well, there's a first. A referee demanding bloodshed. Eddie Vega, it's Valora Salinas. Are we really surprised? Ben Price, I suppose not, no. Eddie Vega, though I don't think she needed to give that order. Frank Windsor can definitely be a dangerous man in that ring, and Cronin looks like he's going to show he's not the Keanu Reeves from Bill and Ted but is more John Wick Keanu. I think it's bullshit and he'll regret locking himself in a cage with Frank Windsor. Eric Wilson leaves the ring and Valora gives the signal and the gigantic cell slowly lowers down and is settled into place. Ben Price, and with that, these two fighters are locked inside the brutal and unforgiving cold steel of the cell. Eddie Vega, 3 people. You forgot Valora. Ben Price, she is not a fighter, she's the ref. Eddie Vega, does she know that? Ben Price, she's got the shirt on okay, I'm pretty sure she knows. Eddie Vega, we'll see. Valora nods and signals the timekeeper, calling for the bell. Ding! Ding! Frank Windsor advances towards Cronin and calls for a test of strength. Cronin moves to accept but at the last second grabs the wrist of Windsor's injured arm and turns into an arm wrench, twisting and torquing the shoulder, causing Frank Windsor to grit his teeth in pain. Cronin adds another turn to this and then throws a few punches into the shoulder for good measure. Frank Windsor breaks this up with a blatant back kick to the groin. Cronin drops to a knee, breaking the hold and looking to Valora, who shrugs. Valora Salinas, I'll allow it. Cronin rolls his eyes and Windsor decides to test this, pulling Cronin to his feet and kicking blatantly in the groin once more, bringing boos from the crowd as Cronin drops to both knees and gets a boot to the face, sending him down to the mat. Windsor turns to Valora. Frank Windsor, you don't have a problem with me turning him into a eunuch, you stupid slut? Valora shrugs. Valora Salinas, well, I don't think Cronin swings that way. You? If you need to touch his junk, by all means. As for the kick to the balls, I'll allow it. As I said, I want you two to bring the violence. Ben Price, Valora doesn't seem to be in the mood to protect the fighters. Eddie Vega, don't screw this up, Frankie. She doesn't seem to be against you. Frank Windsor looks at Valora and gives her the finger. With that, Frank Windsor charges and jumps, catching Cronin as he begins to get to his feet and hits a short head scissors takedown, slamming Cronin face first onto the mat. Frank pulls Cronin to his feet and Cronin cuts him off with a couple of punches to the gut. From there, the two men lock up in a collar and elbow tie-up, each man vying for an edge. Cronin headbutts Frank and brings him to the mat with a belly-to-belly suplex. Cronin then pulls Frank Windsor to his feet and whips him into the ropes and catches him, lifting him up and throwing him over the ropes and into the cell wall, where he slides down the fence and lands in a heap on the floor. Ben Price, well, Valora wanted violence and so far these two are wasting no time ratcheting it up. This has quickly become an intensely personal fight, fans, and I actually disagree a bit with Valora. I get where she is coming from, the fans were getting hyped for Rob Riot versus Cronin. But with how quickly these two men have gone from zero to intense hatred, I think this match has all the potential makings of an instant classic. Eddie Vega, that's the first time you've made sense tonight, Benny boy. Like these men or hate them, there is no argument that Frank Windsor and Cronin are top-tier talents, and both men aren't just riding some temporary streak. These men have been taking names and kicking asses for years and years. Frank Windsor crawls up to his hands and knees and disappears under the ring. Cronin and Valora look at each other puzzled. Meanwhile, Frank Windsor comes out on the other side of the ring and climbs into the ring and charges. Cronin turns and tries a backhanded blow, but Frank Windsor catches it and locks in a wrist lock, which he then transitions to a short arm lariat that sends Cronin to the mat, which brings boos from the crowd as Frank plays to the crowd strutting around in the ring. Ben Price, some unorthodox offense there by Frank Windsor, but it seems to have worked as it gave him the ability to get behind Cronin and catch him with his decapitator signature move. Eddie Vega, looks like Frank was one step ahead of Cronin on that one. Frank Windsor continues strutting around the ring, picking up a bag and holding it up to the crowd as he then turns to look at Valora. Frank Windsor, count his arse. And don't think of fucking me over. Valora gives Frank the finger but begins counting. 1, 2, 3. Cronin pulls himself up to his feet and Valora walks over and checks on him. Valora Salinas, Cronin. Where are you? Arena and City. Cronin sighs. Cronin Reinhardt, Rogers Arena. Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Valora nods and restarts the fight. Valora Salinas, he's fine, fight. Ben Price, Cronin answers the count by a 3 count. So the match will continue for a bit. Think she was unfair there, fanboy? Eddie Vega, well, I like Valora, first of all. Secondly, until Frank Windsor is knocked down, we won't know for sure how fair or biased Valora will be. Before Frank Windsor can open the bag, Cronin charges and spears him, knocking him down and causing him to drop the bag. Cronin slides out under the rope and pulls Windsor to the ringside area and runs, slamming Frank Windsor face first into the chain link wall and grinds Windsor's face into the chain link, eventually busting Frank Windsor's head open. Frank counters with a couple of elbows to the gut and slams Cronin into the chain link wall too before getting behind Cronin and lifts him up, slamming him into the ground with a German suplex. Ben Price, and Cronin has officially delivered on his promise. Frank Windsor seems to be busted open. Eddie Vega, and Valora is making no effort to help. Frank Windsor pulls Cronin to his feet and slams him face first onto the top of the steel steps. He then follows it up with another time and then returns the favor, running and slamming Cronin face first into the chain link before grinding his face on the chain link and busts his forehead open as well. He tries for another German suplex and Cronin breaks free and gets behind and plants Frank Windsor on the floor with a German suplex, as both men lie on the floor, trying to get their second wind. Both men try to get to their feet, standing toe-to-toe and trading punches. They do this until both men drop back to a knee. Frank Windsor rakes the eyes of Cronin and plants him with a DDT. Ben Price, and we now have both men bleeding. And then an epic display of toe-to-toe brawling. I'll give both men credit for standing toe-to-toe and trading punches with neither man taking a step back. Eddie Vega, but in the end, Frank came out on top and now he's got that bag again. Windsor picks up the bag and climbs into the ring, showing the bag off to the crowd, laughing a bit as he opens the bag and dumps a pile of thumbtacks out onto the mat. Valora raises an eyebrow and hops up onto the turnbuckle, sitting down and watching. Frank Windsor, meanwhile, slides out of the ring and walks over to Cronin, kicking him in the ribs, shaking his head and wagging his finger at Cronin as he pulls him to his feet, leading him over to the ring. Cronin is rolled into the ring and Frank Windsor enters the ring and pulls him to his feet and then tries to whip Cronin into the ropes, but Cronin counters and whips Frank Windsor into the ropes and catches him, spinning him around 2 rotations and slams him onto the tacks with his variation of the black hole slam, the crowd cheering as Frank Windsor rolls around crying out in pain. Ben Price, Frank Windsor introduces thumbtacks, but Cronin ends up planting Frank Windsor onto the tacks first. Eddie Vega, and Valora could not possibly seem to be happier. Cronin looks at Valora, pointing to Frank Windsor while removing a few thumbtacks from his own arm. Cronin Reinhardt, count please. Valora hops down and begins counting as she walks over. 1, 2, 3. Frank Windsor groans and stirs, trying to get to his feet. 4, 5, 6. Frank Windsor starts to get to his feet and is standing as Valora counts 7. Valora holds up 3 fingers. Valora Salinas, how many fingers, pendejo? Frank responds with 2 middle fingers and a gesture to his groin. Valora rolls her eyes. Valora Salinas, he's fucking fine. Let's get back to the violence. The crowd jumps to their feet as Valora restarts the fight. Ben Price, Frank Windsor beats the count, and so far, Valora has called this match right down the middle. Eddie Vega, I agree. I think Valora is showcasing that she can be a professional and put the interests of the Fed over her own desires. Ben Price, and yet, I have a feeling Frank Windsor would disagree with us. Eddie Vega, yeah, well, to be fair, Valora can't criticize anyone for paranoia. She's one of the most paranoid people on the planet. Ben Price, I think Rob Riot has her beat in that department, but I do see the point. Eddie Vega, and counting fairly is one thing. The real question is whether or not Valora will acknowledge Frank Windsor winning. Frank Windsor charges forward and he and Cronin trade punches while standing toe-to-toe once more, bringing the crowd to its feet again. The exchange goes punch for punch until Frank Windsor kicks Cronin in the groin again, clubbing him on the back with his forearm a few times. He makes his way behind Cronin and hits another German suplex. Frank Windsor walks around Cronin's prone body as he surveys the scene, debating on what to do next. He places his foot on Cronin and poses, taunting Valora, who once more gives him the finger. Pulling Cronin to his feet, Frank Windsor whips Cronin into the ropes and charges after him. Cronin hits the ropes and almost right after, Frank Windsor hits him with a clothesline that sends both men toppling over the top rope into the floor. Ben Price, what a clothesline. Both men sent over the rope into the floor. Eddie Vega, the champ, doesn't seem able to handle a real challenge. Frank Windsor and Cronin both slowly get to their feet, both men taking time to catch their breath. Both wipe blood from their eyes. Frank Windsor grabs Cronin and begins to make his way towards the wall of the cell. He pauses, showing Cronin off to the crowd, and points to the cell wall before trying to slam him face first into the wall, but Cronin blocks the move. Frank Windsor tries again, meeting the same result. He tries a third time and once more gets the same result, at which point he releases Cronin and screams in frustration. Charging in, he tries for a body splash, but Cronin dodges and grabs Frank Windsor and throws him, adding momentum to Frank's momentum already, causing the man to crash into the wall, nearly going through the wall, and Cronin comes in behind, hitting a body splash of his own, putting more pressure on the wall, which buckles in some points. Frank Windsor turns to Cronin and Valora, his face covered in blood. He raises his fists and Cronin does so in reply, but Frank Windsor takes a step forward and flops, falling flat on his face flare style. Ben Price, the cell is having trouble containing these men. Frank Windsor is in a bad way, his face is the proverbial crimson mask. Eddie Vega, still think he's a good guy. This match is showing us the real Cronin. He's a savage. A barbarian. Captain America wouldn't do something like this. Ben Price, Cronin was born in Germany, as a reminder. Eddie Vega, you know what I mean. Everyone considers him Mr. Nice Guy, but look at what he's doing to poor Frank. Cronin nudges Frank Windsor with his foot and shrugs and turns to Val. Cronin Reinhardt, better count him, if you would. Valora begins counting. 1, 2, 3. Frank Windsor groans and starts to stir as Valora continues the count. 4, 5, 6. Frank Windsor gets to his feet slowly and shakes his head before giving Valora the finger. Frank Windsor, not that easily, you fucking whore. Valora rolls her eyes and restarts the match. Ben Price, Frank Windsor beats the count, and once more, Valora has kept her count consistent. Eddie Vega, you know, she could do her boyfriend Rob Riot a solid and help Frank Windsor out. Cronin sighs and shakes his head but moves in and tries to follow up to attack Frank Windsor, and Frank cuts him off, lifting him up and dropping him groin first on his knee in an inverted atomic drop-like move. Frank Windsor spins around and nails Cronin with a discus-style clothesline, knocking Cronin to the ground. Frank Windsor lets out a sigh, before turning around and spitting out some blood onto the ground and struts around before kicking Cronin in the face. Then, getting an idea, Frank Windsor walks around to a different end of the ring and he reaches under, pulling out a table and slides it into the ring, coming in after it and setting it up over the thumbtacks. Ben Price, what is Frank Windsor up to? It seems he has bad intentions here. Eddie Vega, I think so, bad intentions that might just spell the end of Cronin's title reign. Frank starts off to go after Cronin but instead pauses and wipes some blood from his eyes, sitting on the table as he waits for Cronin. Frank Windsor, whenever you're ready. I got all night, Cronin. Cronin gets to his feet and comes into the ring and moves over to the Frank Windsor, who cuts him off with a boot to the gut before picking Cronin up and hitting a powerbomb-like move through the table onto the thumbtacks, a move that causes Cronin to arch his back and cry out in pain as he writhes on the thumbtacks. Ben Price, my God, fans. This match is getting more and more violent every minute. Eddie Vega, I know and I love it. Frank Windsor looks at his work and nods in satisfaction before turning to Valora. Frank Windsor, count his arse. Valora glares at Frank and begins counting. 1, 2, 3. Cronin manages to get out of the rubble and tries to stand up. 4, 5. Cronin stands up, and Valora clears him to continue fighting. Cronin turns to look at Frank, both men still having thumbtacks stuck in their bodies now. Ben Price, don't be fooled, fans. Those thumbtacks in their bodies are causing Frank Windsor and Cronin pain with every movement. Eddie Vega, a good point, Benny boy. Frank Windsor comes in and punches Cronin. Cronin replies with a punch, and both men have the same idea at the same time as both men go for a knee to the gut and slam into each other. Frank Windsor stumbles and drops to a knee. Cronin follows this up with a German suplex and gets to a knee, having to pause as blood loss begins to catch up with him. Cronin decides to roll with this a bit and, instead of getting up, moves over to Frank Windsor and locks in a Kimura-style arm and shoulder lock, once more targeting the injured shoulder of Frank Windsor. Frank screams in pain as Cronin increases the torque and pressure, and eventually Frank Windsor begins tapping, but Valora shrugs and shakes her head. Valora Salinas, tap all you want, Pendejo. I ain't stopping this match until you fail to answer the 10 count. Or Cronin fails to answer it. I don't care who it is, but one of you fucking Pendejos are going to get knocked the fuck out. Ben Price, a reminder from Valora there on how the match ends. Meanwhile, Cronin is putting pressure on that shoulder of Frank Windsor's. Eddie Vega, he's deliberately trying to injure his opponent. He knows he can't win the match. Cronin finally breaks the hold and slides out of the ring, beginning to look under the ring for a weapon. Frank Windsor rides on the mat but gets up and, seeing Cronin, charges, jumping up and springboarding off the ropes, catches Cronin and bringing him down with a Mayora-like move that brings chants of "holy shit" from the crowd. Ben Price, holy shit indeed, fans. Windsor goes airborne in a big way and is able to cut off whatever offense Cronin had planned next. Eddie Vega, simply amazing. Even with an injured shoulder, Frank Windsor is better than Cronin. Frank Windsor gets to his feet, holding his shit and quickly clenching and unclenching his fist as he tries to get circulation flowing once again. He runs forward and hops onto the ring apron and leaps off, nailing Cronin with a drop kick that knocks Cronin up against the wall of the cell. Windsor goes to the well again, sliding into the ring and running, rebounding off the ropes and diving over the top rope. Cronin comes forward, catches him, and tries to turn it into a throw, as both men crash into and through the wall of the cell, spilling to the outside as both men land in a heap in front of the commentary desk. Ben Price, my God. It looks like a damn car wreck out here, fans. It's really hard to tell who took the worst of that move. Eddie Vega, they both did. They both took the worst of it. Valora has a big grin on her face as she watches the carnage before rolling her eyes and begins counting. 1, 2. Eddie Vega, the fuck is she doing? Valora glares at the commentary desk. Valora, my fucking job. Vega, now shut the fuck up. 3, 4. Ben Price, no smart comeback? Eddie Vega, shut up. Least she knows who I am. Valora continues to count. 5, 6. Both men start stirring and begin trying to get to their feet, both using the commentary desk to pull themselves up as Valora keeps counting. 7. Ben Price, Valora. Both of these men are a bloody mess. You have to stop this and let them get medical attention. Valora considers this, holding her hand out and making a thumbs down gesture. Valora Salinas, denied. We're going to find out who the fucking champ is. The crowd cheers at this news. Eddie Vega, I think I agree with you, Benny boy. That's a lot of blood these guys are losing. But at the same time, I don't think either man would want the match stopped. The answer comes as Cronin slams Frank Windsor face first into the commentary desk. Cronin Reinhardt, skies. I'm going to put an end to you once and for all, Windsor. Ben Price, Cronin. Please. For the love of God, just end the fight already. Eddie Vega, you're bleeding all over our desk, man. We gotta use this. Cronin looks at the commentators and grabs Frank Windsor. Windsor hits a few elbow blows and then the two trade punches. Frank Windsor seems to get the edge, hitting Cronin with a series of punches before winding up for a haymaker. Cronin sees this coming and dodges, grabbing Frank Windsor and lifting him up and planting him onto and through the commentary desk with the Olympic slam, both men again lying on the ground in a heap after the move as more chants of holy shit ring out from the crowd. Ben Price, Olympic slam. My God, both these men are going to be in the hospital for a month after this. Eddie Vega, God damn it. Corgan. Do your job and stop this match. Valora points at Daniel Corgan. Valora Salinas, I can and will fire your ass. Corgan makes an appeal to let him treat the fighters and Valora rolls her eyes and begins counting. 1. Eddie Vega, what happens if neither man can stand? Valora's count continues as Eddie asks the question. 2. Ben Price, I would imagine the match would essentially be a draw and Cronin would retain the belt due to champion's advantage. 3. Cronin crawls over to the barricades as Valora counts and pulls himself to his feet and stands up, standing on his own as he signals to Valora he's good to continue. Valora continues her count. 4. Frank Windsor also gets to his feet finally, losing his footing on the remains of the desk, Ben Price and Eddie Vega stepping in to help steady Windsor, who finally stumbles out, looking at Cronin and then to Valora. Frank Windsor, come on. I didn't hear no bell. Come on. I fight both you fucking gits. I'll fight all 6 of you. Cronin and Valora look at each other and then back to Windsor, who takes 2 steps and flops again, falling flat on his face. Valora shrugs and continues counting. 5. Eddie Vega, wait. She has to start over. 6. Ben Price, clearly Frank Windsor never convinced Valora he was able to continue fighting. 7. Frank Windsor pulls himself up to his feet again and shakes his head, grabbing a bottle of water from a fan and dumping it on his face in an effort to clear some of the blood from his eyes. Valora looks at this and nods. Valora Salinas, resume the fight. Ben Price, fans, both men promised us a brutal match tonight and they have delivered. Once more, like them or hate them, these men will never be the same after this match and are risking their bodies for your entertainment. Eddie Vega, yeah, Valora, Rob Riot and Greg Salazar were on record saying this match was going to be a disappointment and they needed 2 main events to save the show. Cronin Reinhardt and Frank Windsor have proven all of them wrong. This match is an instant classic already and it isn't even over yet. Frank Windsor and Cronin, both men exhausted and feeling the blood loss, pause here, trying to decide just what to do to keep their opponent down. Frank Windsor looks up at the top of the cell and gets an idea as he begins giggling, which then grows to a full-on cackle as he looks at Cronin. Frank Windsor, can't fight for myself, huh? Wait till you see this, you fucking giant mound of shite. Frank Windsor climbs up the cage. Cronin watches and rolls his eyes, making the jerk-off motion. As he climbs, Frank slips and loses his footing a bit. Deciding to go with it, he jumps off the side of the cage and hits Cronin with a modified crossbody that brings both men to the ground and brings more chants from the crowd. Frank Windsor climbs to his feet and slowly turns, posing for the crowd before he once more begins making his way up the cage wall. Ben Price, at crossbody from about halfway up the cage wall. Definitely some innovative offense from Frank Windsor there. Eddie Vega, I keep telling you, Benny boy. The bastards call themselves elite for a reason. Because they are. Frank Windsor gets up to the top of the cage and calls for Cronin to get up and follow him. Cronin obliges and climbs up the wall of the cell too. Cronin soon reaches the top as well, and both men stand on the roof of the cell and Valora stands inside the ring, looking up as she watches the two fighters. Ben Price, at the risk of stating the obvious, we can say the cell has failed to keep the carnage contained. Eddie Vega, yeah. Safe to say. Frank Windsor makes his way over and tries a drop kick to knock Cronin off. Cronin dodges and makes his way towards the middle of the roof. Frank follows and the two trade punches, which ends with Cronin hitting a boot to the gut and a European uppercut that knocks Windsor flat on his back on the roof. Ben Price, I'm very nervous about those two fighting up there. Eddie Vega, well, our desk is already busted. What's the worst that can happen? Cronin signals to the crowd he plans to end the match and pulls Frank Windsor to his feet. Cronin takes a deep breath and lifts Frank Windsor up, hoisting him up high and planting him onto the roof of the cell, which then breaks and sends Frank Windsor going through the cell and onto the mat, Valora diving out of the way to avoid Windsor falling on her. Ben Price, my God. Metal meltdown, but the roof broke. Eddie Vega, he just killed Frank Windsor. Cronin is standing on the roof looking down, his eye wide in surprise as he drops down through the hole into the ring. Valora runs over and takes a knee, checking on Frank Windsor, before beginning the count. 1. Eddie Vega, we don't need a count. Frank Windsor needs medical attention. Ben Price, both these men do, but Frank is definitely the worse injured of the two. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. Valora calls for the bell. Ding! Ding! Daniel Corgan and CWF medical staff come in and bring out the stretcher for Frank Windsor. Eric Wilson hands the title to Valora, who hands the belt to Cronin, and Eric Wilson makes the call. Eric Wilson, ladies and gentlemen, the winner, by being the last man standing, and still CWF Conquest champion, Cronin. Cronin holds the belt up and then falls to a sitting position as blood loss catches up with him, and Daniel Corgan checks on Cronin. Ben Price, well, fans. Cronin is a man of his word. He said he was not going to take mercy on Frank Windsor. He said Frank had asked for this, and he promised that Frank Windsor would not walk out of here. Promise kept. Eddie Vega, I still say that anyone who thought this match was going to be a disappointment got proven wrong. I mean, this area looks like a war zone. One man is being taken out on a stretcher. The other man might join him in needing help to get backstage. Kara Reinhart and a surprise appearance of Nathan come down to the ring, and the two of them work with some CWF medical staff to help Cronin backstage. Ben Price, while we get this arena back into shape for our last match tonight, I'm told we'll be going to the back to speak with the administrator of Four Winds Wrestling, Ian Childress. Eddie Vega, I hope this is good. The camera cuts to the back, where we have Ian Childress sitting in a chair, and a small table next to him. On the table is something hidden behind a small screen. Off in the distance, a couple of people are standing. All three have stark red hair. Blaze McClancy is one of them. The others are Sean McClancy, still wearing his referee shirt from earlier. He appears to be chatting up some young lady. The other is a stunning redhead, who looks very much related to the other McClancy's there. She turns to the camera, smiles and raises her glass of what appears to be a deep red wine over Ian's shoulder. Ben Price, whoa, that's a lot of McClancy's. Eddie Vega, who is the red-haired lady? She's Ben Price, his wife. Eddie Vega, never mind. Gee, Ian Childress, well, so far tonight we have given you a lot of action, and there is still one more match. This is a defining match for me, as for Wins Wrestling was my baby so long ago. And while we get the cage up and secured, as it won't be needed for the next match, I figured I'd take a moment to let you all in on a little secret for the rest of Season 3 of the CWF, and for WW as we start to reach out for other federations to join us. He pulls the screen out of the way of the object that was hidden. On the table is a title belt. It's got purple leather, and a lot of gold and a moon and triple goddess motif. Ben Price, WHOAH. Eddie Vega, that's a pretty title. Gee, Ian Childress, while the Tempest Championship is for those who are a little on the lighter side of the wrestling world, we have decided that we should form a women's-only division. And this will be their championship. We're currently calling this the Luna Championship, and I think it embodies the very spirit of women around the world. Ben Price, a new belt? Gee, Ian Childress, we're going to be starting a tournament as we start to openly recruit other federations to our fold. And this is a bit of the bait for them. Every federation who joins is encouraged to find at least 2 women to send into this tournament, to be finalized at our next CWF pay-per-view from our new hometown in Las Vegas, Nevada. This is not limited to any weight, so women like Kara Reinhardt, who are on the bigger side, can openly compete for it, but we are encouraging any woman to go for it. Those in the CWF now can of course start submitting their names. But the final tourney will be limited to 2 women from each federation. He raises his own glass to the camera. Gee, Ian Childress, to those who want a shot, I wish you luck. But for now, stay tuned for more as we start to work on expanding the 4WW to include other fields of battle. In the meantime, let's get to the first 4 Wins Championship defense. Mr. Riot, Mr. Salazar, I wish you both good luck. May the best man win. The camera then cuts back to the announcers. Ben Price, and there you have it, opening up the 4WW to other federations is about to start, and we're going to have a tourney for a new women's championship, the Luna Championship, as we do so. Eddie Vega, we'll have to wait and see how that works out, but in the meantime, I think we're ready for Rob Riot to defend that big 4WW title belt. Ben, Eric Wilson, the following matchup is our second main event of the evening, and our final matchup for tonight. This will be for the newly crowned 4 Wins Championship. It will be fought under last man standing rules. This means that the loser of this matchup will be the one to not answer a 10 count by the referee. Additionally, this match is under hardcore rules, and falls can count anywhere in the arena. Eddie Vega, I'm actually looking forward to this matchup. Ben Price, I'm sure you are, especially after Frank Windsor failed to take the Conquest Championship home. Eddie Vega, Bastards gained a set of titles on the Vanguard pre-show. They just need to win this one and it's a 0 gain, but also a 0 loss. Ben Price, you're not wrong there. Eric Wilson, introducing first, the challenger, currently hailing from Seattle, Washington. A year ago. He is still the current reigning Legendary Wrestling Alliance, Legendary Champion, and one half of the Canadian Championship Wrestling Tag Team Champions. He comes in at 6 feet 1 inch and 235 pounds, and is a member of the wrestling stable, Bad Company. This is the Paragon Gregory Michael Salazar. The screen over the stage comes up, as Limits by Bad Omen starts. This is an authorized cover of the song by Salazar's own band, Cryptic Writings, of which he performs lead vocals and bass on this track. As the screen brings up his entire name, Gregory Michael Salazar, and then condenses it down to GMS, he walks out. He's wearing his Bad Company gear with the black BDU-style pants and matching combat vest. Around his waist is the LWA Legendary Championship. Eddie Vega, why is he wearing that? The LWA is defunct now. Ben Price, he's still the last LWA Legendary Champion, and he's never lost that belt. As I understand it, they've never given him back his deposit on the belt, so as long as they owe him back that money, it's his. Eddie Vega, well, can't argue that last part, but that title means nothing anymore. GMS walks down the ramp, heading for the ring. He appears to be concentrating on getting to the ring, occasionally touching a fan's hand, here and there, but moving with a purpose. When he gets to the ring steps, he wipes his combat boots on the bottom step, then climbs up to the ring apron, then the corner. He raises his hands once he's up there, and soaks up the chairs a bit. Once he's ready, he hops down off the turnbuckle to the inside of the ring. He doffs his combat vest first, and then removes the LWA title as he starts to pace on the challenger's side of the ring. Eric Wilson, and defending the Four Winds Wrestling Championship, from Blackpool, England, and he is 1/3 of the new Four Winds Wrestling Legion champions. I Feel You by Depeche Mode bursts through the arena PA as the entrance ramp is bathed in red and white spotlights. They arc and twist over the ramp, waiting to pick out Rob Riot. Just as the vocals kick in, Riot steps through the curtains, twirling his long black ring jacket behind him as he does. Over one shoulder is his new 4WW Legion Championship. He takes a moment to soak in the crowd's response, nodding to himself as he does, before turning his attention to the ring. After a moment, he opens the jacket to reveal the Four Winds Wrestling Championship around his waist. Eric Wilson, he represents the wrestling stable of the Bastards, and comes in at 6 feet 3 inches and 245 lbs. He is the Riot star ROB Riot. Raising one arm and clenching his fist in the air, Riot walks down to the ring, now oblivious to the crowd around him. He's all business. He walks around the ring once and takes his time to climb up the steps, walking halfway along the ring and wiping his feet before he steps through the ropes. Once inside, he holds up both of his 4WW titles. He hands the Legion Championship belt to a ring attendant first, and then gets a few steps in front of the pacing GMS, and looks to be gloating with the 4WW title a bit. Eddie Vega, and that championship is actually active right now, so worth so much more than the LWA title. Ben Price, well, you're not completely wrong, although, one thing I've heard the 4WW does with its titles, is instead of having a deposit, actually has them insured. Eddie Vega, that makes so much more sense than having a wrestler put a deposit down to have a title belt. Riot finishes, handing the 4WW title to the referee, before taking off his jacket and handing that to the ring attendant. Eric Wilson, your referee for this matchup, CWF Senior Referee, Scott Jones. Jones holds up the Four Winds Championship, and walks around the ring for a moment, before calling both men to the middle of the ring. He quickly runs down the rules, and then walks over to hand the title to the timekeeper, Charlotte Anderson. As soon as Eric Wilson has cleared the ring, Jones calls for the bell. Ding! Ding! As soon as the bell rings, Greg Salazar moves forward. He appears to be looking to sprint, but Riot moves out of what would be his way. Salazar stops, smiles, and wages his finger at Riot. Riot spreads his arms out in a come-on motion. Ben Price, come on, let's get going. Eddie Vega, yeah, let's see some more blood. This match doesn't have a Hell in a Cell or exploding barbed wire, so they'll have to get creative to overcome those matches. The two move in and lock up now. But Salazar is quick to turn it into a martial arts style throw. Riot hits the mat, and comes up to his feet quickly. When Salazar moves in on him, Riot returns the favor, floating around and turning it into a hip toss with some authority. Salazar hits the mat hard, and slides a bit towards the ropes. Ben Price, tit for tat out here so far. Eddie Vega, wait, did someone flash the camera? Ben Price, no they didn't. Riot moves in on GMS, who pushes himself the rest of the way out of the ring. Riot follows, slipping under the bottom rope. GMS quickly steps up onto the ring steps, and comes off with a side kick that nails Riot in the chest. Riot drops down with the impact. Salazar quickly lands, and then goes back up to the second ring step to come off with a double foot stomp, but Riot quickly moves out of the way, heading under the ring. Ben Price, unconventional move by Riot there. Eddie Vega, yeah. Salazar pulls the ring apron up to look for Riot, but is met by a shot to the head with one of the spare turnbuckles, and not the padded part. Salazar falls back, getting stopped by the barricade around the ring. Riot comes out from under the ring and swings the metal club again, but this time, GMS dodges it, and Riot hits the barricade with the makeshift weapon. Ben Price, that could almost kill someone swinging one of those. Riot tries to swing the club towards GMS, coming up from the barricade, but Salazar grabs it and flips him over in another throw, this time sending him into the ring steps, which blow apart in a huge cacophony. Salazar moves in, and Riot kicks out, hitting him in the shin, and causing him to drop down to one knee. Riot then comes up, and grabs him into a front face lock. He hooks the arm, and drops him in a hammerlock DDT right on the concrete. At least he tried to, but being on one knee, Salazar blocks it and pushes Riot off with the move. Salazar lines up, and as Riot starts to come up, he runs in for a knee strike. But Riot dodges and twists to push him, sending him over the barricade and into the seats behind it. People scramble to get out of the way. Eddie Vega, Riot so far proving why he's the 4 wins champion. Scott Jones comes in to check on Salazar, but right when he gets there, GMS comes up to his feet. Riot moves in when he sees him, but gets grabbed and then hit with a huge headbutt. When Riot turns around holding his head, he gets hooked into a half Nelson and by the leg, and then launched up and over the barricade into stairs even further back with a ring toss suplex. Ben Price, that was probably the hardest landing anyone has taken from a ring toss. Salazar stalks over where Riot had landed. Jones is right behind him. When he sees Riot down in the jumbled mess of chairs, he starts to count. 1, 2, 3. Riot rolls over and starts to come up to his feet. Ben Price, not yet. Not yet. Salazar grabs Riot as he comes up and then runs with him, until he can whip him into one of the double doors going to the concourse outside. Riot hits it and stumbles through. Salazar comes running in right after, but he gets caught by a huge spinning European uppercut that rocks him back into a wall. Riot moves in with an attempt at a super kick, but GMS ducks out of the way. Riot manages to not hit the wall with it. Eddie Vega, now that's how you miss a super kick. Bet you thought he would have kicked the wall there. Riot spins back the other way, catching Salazar with an elbow to the chin. He then keeps moving, spinning to grab GMS around the waist and lifting him up to run right to one of the concrete pylons that support the structure of the arena above them. Before the hit, GMS starts to deliver elbows of his own to Riot's neck and back. Riot puts him down, and Salazar hits him with a knee strike to the face. Ben Price, I'm beginning to think these two honestly don't like each other. Eddie Vega, well, Salazar called Riot his white whale. He's gone Captain Ahab on us all. Salazar grabs a hold of Riot, slipping him into a full Nelson. He tries to lock his hands together, but Riot blocks it, and tries to keep it from locking in. The camera is close enough to pick up a short conversation. Greg Salazar, you know it's funny about Miss Dresden. Riot seems to be trying to ignore it, in case it's a plot. Greg Salazar, she doesn't get it from Valora, so it has to come from you, unless you're not her father. Riot speaks through gritted teeth. Rob Riot, what do you mean? Greg Salazar, she's one of us, well more like one of McClancy's people, the blood of the fae flows through her veins. So either you're not her daddy or... Riot breaks free of the hold, and brings an elbow up to Salazar's face. He then grabs him and whips him to a large cart used for transporting trash bags from various places to the dumpsters out back. The cart falls over, with the impact. Riot shakes his head as he moves in on his downed opponent. Again, the camera mic picks them up being the only people except the referee around. Rob Riot, what are you trying to say? Salazar starts to come up to his feet. Greg Salazar, easy, she's either not yours, or you have something in your bloodline you don't know about. I'm going to guess, maybe not yours. And at that, Riot jumps up and hits him with a back senton. Ben Price, what's that all about? Eddie Vega, hell if I know. Riot gets to his feet first. He grabs a fire extinguisher off the wall and then sets up. As GMS comes to his feet, Riot runs forward and hits him in the face with it. When Salazar falls down again, Riot pulls it over his head and starts to bring it down on him. Salazar puts both forearms up to block. The extinguisher stops, with what sounds like a dull clang. He pulls back up and sends it down again, to the same result. Ben Price, that sounded like metal on metal? Eddie Vega, I have no idea. Riot suddenly stops, pulls the horn off the fire extinguisher and then blasts Salazar in the face. He keeps the lever pulled, to just about empty the whole thing on him. Ben Price, not a bad tactic there. That's a lot of CO2, and Salazar has already wrestled tonight. He'll be short on oxygen now. Scott Jones waits for the cloud to start to dissipate, before he moves in to check on Salazar, who has already started to come up to his hands and knees. While Jones does his job, Riot starts to move, heading down the hallway some. Eddie Vega, now what is Rob Riot going? Riot gets about 20 feet down the hallway, before he finds a storage area of the crates used for moving production equipment for the show. Riot grabs one of the large crates and he pushes it a bit to get it closer to where GMS was starting to get up. Once he has it in place, he kicks the brakes down on two of the wheels, and then moves over to grab GMS by the head. He pulls him into a suplex setup, hooks the leg. Ben Price, this is going to hurt. Eddie Vega, come on, hit it, it could be over. Riot tries to lift up into the fisherman's suplex, but Salazar blocks it. Riot hits him with a couple of fists to his midsection, and then tries to lift him up again. Again Salazar blocks it. Ben Price, I don't think he's going to get it. GMS delivers a couple of shots of his own to Riot's face, before he adjusts the hold, and lifts Riot up to drop him down face first onto the box's base drop cradle gourd buster. Riot appears to have got his hands down to help break the fall a bit, before he landed. Ben Price, not how Riot intended that to go down. Eddie Vega, I'm not sure anyone would want to take that. GMS jumps up onto the crate, as Riot starts to come up to his feet. Salazar pulls him the rest of the way up. Riot takes a swing at GMS, but he counters that into a half Nelson hold. He then grabs his other arm and pulls it into a pump handle setup. Ben Price, what's this? Salazar pulls up and then turns the pump handle into a half Nelson driver on top of the crate. He appears to land hard, letting go and getting up with a slight limp, holding his lower back. Scott Jones is there to check on Riot, and starts a count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Suddenly Gabriel Tuck comes in and dumps 2 bottles of water down onto Riot, as he's laying on the crate. Eddie Vega, yes. Ben Price, that's Gabriel Tuck. What's he doing out here? 6. Riot shoots up as an effect of the ice-cold water. Jones stops the count. Eddie Vega, what's it look like he's doing? Ben Price, helping Riot cheat. Eddie Vega, it's not against the rules. Ben Price, not for anyone else, but Tuck works for Von Krause. Riot looks to his helper and smiles wide. Tuck nods to him and extends his hand. Riot shakes it, but it's interrupted by Greg Salazar with a spinning heel kick that catches Tuck on the ear. As Tuck stumbles back, holding his ear, GMS moves in on Rob Riot. Ben Price, well, the match is still going, they need to not take their eyes off their opponent if they're going to be a team. GMS grabs Riot, and then hooks him for a Saito suplex. He takes him up and back, dropping down onto the corner of the production box. Jones comes in, and checks on Riot. Salazar comes up to his feet, but immediately gets nailed by a spear from Gabriel Tuck. GMS locks in a guillotine submission on Tuck before he can get up from the spear. Riot comes back into it, having recovered and waved off Scott Jones. He kicks Salazar hard to his ribs, causing him to free Tuck from the hold. Riot helps Tuck get up. GMS rolls a bit out of the way, and starts to come up to his hands and knees, first. Ben Price, I'm not sure I really like this. Eddie Vega, whatever works, right? Anything goes, it's not like it's one of the bastards involved here. Ben Price, where are the Reinhardts? Eddie Vega, Cronin is probably getting checked by medical, and if he's hurt, his sister is there. Then again, maybe they don't care? Greg Salazar finally gets to his feet and blocks an attack from Tuck before spinning around and slamming an elbow into Tuck's face. He then jumps up and kicks him in the head, sending him to the ground. Rob Riott comes up behind Greg Salazar, who kicks behind him, doubling him over, spinning over and hooks him and drives his knee into Riott's face and picks him up and slamming him on the floor with a slightly wonky powerbomb. Ben Price, Greg Salazar is now essentially fighting a handicap match. For the moment he seems to be holding his own, but how long can he do this? Eddie Vega, too bad his friends don't have his back. Tuck grabs the empty fire extinguisher and swings it, hitting GMS in the back of his head. GMS turns around to catch Tuck winding up again. Salazar blocks the swinging object, again a dull clang is heard before he grabs Tuck's head, and drops down into a sniper shot too. Riott is right there, coming in with a fist drop to Salazar's face right after he lands on the move. Ben Price, sniper shot, but Riott was right there. Gabriel Tuck starts to get to his feet. Meanwhile, Rob Riott pulls Greg Salazar up. He then hits him with a European uppercut and then another European uppercut and then spins around, hitting GMS with a discus clothesline, sending him back to the floor. Ben Price, Greg Salazar still facing off against two opponents. Eddie Vega, make all the excuses you want. Rob Riott fights back and begins to take charge of the fight. Riott again pulls Salazar up. This time Tuck joins him, and they both hook him up for a suplex. They lift and drop back, to drop him onto that production crate. Ben Price, that one had to hurt. Jones gets in, and noticing Salazar is down, starts to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Salazar rolls off the crate, away from both Riott and Tuck. He kicks the brakes off the two wheels on that side before kicking it with both feet. The car rolls into both Tuck's and Riott's legs, knocking them both down. Salazar scrambles to his feet and heads down the hallway. Ben Price, putting some distance between them, a good tactic here. The camera follows as GMS heads through Gorilla and then out onto the rampway. He's quickly cut off by Gabriel Tuck, who had opted for the other entrance to come out in front of him. Salazar snaps a side kick up that hits Tuck smack in the middle of his chest, and pushes him back just a bit. Riott comes up behind Salazar and locks him into a Cobra Clutch-style sleeper hold. Tuck comes in and starts to deliver a series of punches to Salazar's midsection. After a few of those, Salazar brings his knee up and catches Tuck in the face. Then Riott takes him over with a suplex from the Cobra Clutch hold, right off the entrance ramp into the production area about 5 feet down. Scott Jones jumps down to check on Salazar, and starts to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and half. Salazar rolls to the edge of the ramp and starts to use it to bring himself to his feet. Rob Riott stalks GMS and tries to pull him the rest of the way to his feet, but GMS suddenly bursts into action and grabs Riott around his waist. He lifts Riott up and slams him down groin first on his knee. He then leads Rob Riott over to the side of the steel ramp and bounces Riott's face off the top of the diamond tread. Gabriel Tuck comes in and cuts off follow-up offense off by hitting GMS with a German suplex. Ben Price, and the numbers game once again catches up with Greg Salazar. Eddie Vega, you didn't complain with Valora putting herself in a special guest ref. Ben Price, she also didn't help Cronin. Like at all. She was completely down the middle. Gabriel Tuck is not. Eddie Vega, well then maybe one of his friends should come out and help him. Oh wait, Cronin is likely injured and so is Kara. Gabriel Tuck pulls GMS up to his feet and tries to whip him into the side of the steel ramp, but GMS counters and sends Tuck head first into it instead. GMS turns around and is hit with a boot to the gut from Rob Riot, and Rob grabs GMS and begins making his way back into the production area. As they walk, Riot punches Salazar in the kidney, in the liver and in the head. GMS eventually blocks and fires back a punch of his own. Rob Riot fires an European uppercut. Riot then grabs GMS and whips him towards the entryway, as GMS slams into the metal frame of the entryway. Riot grabs GMS and the two disappear through the entryway. Ben Price, come on cameraman, catch up, catch up. Eddie Vega, where are they going? Finally, a cameraman makes it backstage and we see Scott Jones also arriving as we see GMS and Rob Riot brawling with each other. Greg Salazar finds the catering table and grabs a can of whipped cream and sprays it in the face of Rob Riot, and when he finally cries out, GMS adjusts and sprays it into Rob Riot's mouth. Riot kicks out and hits GMS' groin and wipes his eyes, and leads GMS over to an empty table set up and picks up GMS and hits a fisherman's suplex through the table. Scott Jones counts as both fighters lie exhausted on the broken remains of the table. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Rob Riot finally manages to stand up and Scott Jones continues counting as Riot stumbles away from the broken table and leans against the wall. 6, 7. GMS pulls himself to his feet. Ben Price, and, well damn. They've found the catering table. Eddie Vega, not the catering. If they destroy the food, I swear to God. Rob Riot sighs and shakes his head, moving over and grabbing GMS, the camera mic close enough to pick up some conversation. Rob Riot, all right. You and I are going to have a conversation. Riot says as he plants GMS face first into the wall and then grabs taco sauce, opening the bags and rubbing the very hot flavored sauce on his hands before rubbing it into the eyes of GMS, causing the man to cry out in pain. Rob Riot, now. That is for slandering my daughter. It's a good tactic. Playing on my paranoia. Turn me against Valora and Abigail. But it also runs the risk of me ending your career here and now. GMS breaks free and swings wildly, Rob Riot stepping back and pushing Scott Jones towards GMS. GMS grabs Scott Jones but hesitates and doesn't see Jones attacking and moves him aside. Ben Price, that can't feel good, and is potentially dangerous if Greg Salazar doesn't get that out of his eyes soon. Eddie Vega, you know Benny boy, people can say what they want about Rob Riot, but the man is a thinking man's wrestler and always has a plan. The camera picks up Greg's words as he grabs a cloth napkin and starts to dab around his eyes. Greg Salazar, not slander if it's true, pendejo. You're not the only one who has seen footage that you weren't supposed to. They're testing her now as well. Valora was there. Ben Price, not sure that napkin is going to help much. Do they have an eyewash or a water fountain around there? Or milk? Milk is what you use for hot sauce. I know, I have to drink a whole glass with mild wings. Riot moves in, but when he goes to grab Salazar, he spins the now hot sauce covered napkin a bit and snaps him in the face. Riot grabs his face, right next to his eyes, from the snap. Salazar then comes at him and shoulder blocks him into one of the other catering tables. When GMS falls back, his hand lands on a wall-mounted water fountain, with a built-in eyewash station. Ben Price, that's what he needs now. Salazar quickly pulls the caps off the eyewash and starts to use it. Riot comes up to his feet, and actually appears to wait, while the man has his face over two water spouts. After a few moments, GMS comes up and starts to wipe his face with the napkin again to dry it off. Riot grabs GMS and slams him face first into the water fountain before leading the man into one of the public restrooms. Scott Jones and the cameraman shrug and head in after them. Ben Price, OW, that one had to hurt. Eddie Vega, at least Riot waited till he wasn't near those two spigots of water. He could have impaled him in the eyes if he'd wanted to. Inside we see Rob Riot and GMS are continuing to have their conversation, though the acoustics of the bathroom make it hard to make out just what is being said. GMS returns the favor by rubbing soap in the eyes of Riot, and the two men take turns bouncing the head of their opponent off the sinks and counters. GMS leads Riot over to the urinals, but Riot cuts off an attack that would have seen him be placed face first into said urinal and hits GMS with a European uppercut. Riot charges for a follow-up, but GMS catches him and hits a release belly to belly, throwing Riot into and through the walls of the bathroom stall. GMS lets out an exasperated breath and gestures to Scott Jones, who begins counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Rob Riot stumbles to his feet, making his way out of the collateral damage of the bathroom stall. Ben Price, I don't want to think about how much this is going to cost the company. Eddie Vega, why the hell do you care? You own stock? Ben Price, the more money our bosses and ownership have to pay for damages done to the stadium, the less money they have for bonuses, pay raises, and incentives that go to the talent. Both wrestlers and non-wrestling talent like you and me. Eddie Vega, good point. GMS grabs Riot and the two exit the bathroom and begin fighting back towards the corporate suites. Ben Price, hey, that's the office's area. Eddie Vega, sure is. GMS leads Riot and sees the name on the first door. Greg Salazar, hey, let's visit your sweetheart. He says before throwing Riot face first into the door for the corporate suite with the name Creative Director of Production and Booking, Valora Salinas. Riot is nearly sent in a second time but stops himself and elbows GMS in the gut and then in the face. Rob Riot, do let's. I'm sure her lead pipe would love to meet your skull. Ben Price, well, Valora has, for the most part, been fair, but I think Riot makes a good point there, not sure she would just stand by and watch her romantic partner get throttled. Eddie Vega, you say that like it's a bad thing. Greg Salazar has the beating coming. Rob Riot grabs GMS and whips Salazar hard, sending him towards one of the other doors in the back. The door bursts open, and actually appears to fall off the hinges. We find ourselves now in the private box being used by the Von Kraus backstage. The windows are looking out towards the ring, right above the lower area for seating. There are a collection of TV screens set up to monitor different areas, including the camera feed following the men around. Armand Von Kraus gets up and looks down at Salazar as Scott Jones checks on him. Rob Riot steps into the door and cracks a bit of a smile seeing the Von Kraus. Rob Riot, excuse me, mind if we play through? Armand Von Kraus, I'd prefer if you didn't, but not sure you'd give me a choice right now. He reaches down and pulls Salazar up to his feet. He grabs GMS' arm and moves to put his foot up on his collarbone to drop down for eat defeat, but Salazar grabs the door jamb and allows Riot to fall backwards without him. Riot rolls with the non-move and comes up to his feet to get grabbed into a ripcord and a spinning back fist. Ben Price, Iron Fist. Eddie Vega, come on Riot. You're in enemy territory right now. Gabriel Tuck comes up to the door, meets eyes with Armand Von Kraus and backs off a bit. Greg Salazar keeps a hold of Rob Riot and pulls him up onto his shoulders, in an inverted fireman's carry. Eddie Vega, no, he was told to not use that move, I heard. Ben Price, well, it looks like he's going to use it anyway. Armand Von Kraus smiles and nods, seeing this. Armand Von Kraus, that's it. Go ahead and finish it, and him right here in front of me. Drop him in the Oni driver. If you'd like, I'll have Gabriel put a chair in the way for landing on. Salazar hesitates, and appears to be glaring at Von Kraus. Tuck hasn't moved from the doorway. Von Kraus nods, and motions for the move to happen. Armand Von Kraus, do it. One move stands between you and final victory. Do Marines make a habit of sparing their enemies? Eddie Vega, don't do it. Ben Price, for once I'll agree. That's a dangerous move, and being done not in the ring. Salazar drops Riot down, feet first. Riot falls back towards the door, stumbling. GMS then shakes his head. Greg Salazar, no. I get it now. As Salazar and Von Kraus glare at each other, Gabriel Tuck pulls Riot out of the room, slapping him a few times on the face to bring him back to full consciousness. Salazar turns on heel, doing an almost military about-face move, and then comes out of the room. He points to the cameraman and then motions for him to back off a bit. This time when Salazar says something to both Riot and Tuck, the camera isn't close enough to pick it up. Riot lashes out quickly, and this time gets the eat defeat he went for before. Jones is quick to check on both men while they're down. Tuck moves in quickly to pull Riot up to his feet, until Von Krause steps out of the private box. When Tuck lets Riot go, he stays up on his feet, though. Salazar starts to get up. Ben Price, after what happened with the carnival earlier tonight, not sure you want to keep helping Riot like that, Gabriel. Eddie Vega, I'm sure he shouldn't be doing that. Tuck taps Riot on the shoulder and motions down the hallway. Riot nods, and both head down that hallway until it opens up to head out into the crowd near the front windows to Von Krause' private box, once again amongst the fans. Ben Price, and now they're right up there. The picture-in-picture shows Ben Price standing up and pointing. Eddie Vega keeps watching on his monitor. Eddie Vega, yeah, the cameraman is closer to them. No need to point. They're showing it on the big screen as well. As Tuck and Riot make their way down the stairs through the lanes between the seats, Greg Salazar can soon be seen coming up behind them, the referee Scott Jones not far behind. As the two get near to ringside, a fan stands up and cracks Gabriel Tuck in the face with a steel chair, knocking him out cold. The fan removes the hoodie and reveals herself to be Ben Price, Abigail Dresden. Abigail just knocked Tuck into the middle of next week with that chair shot. Eddie Vega, goddamn it kid. Can't you help your dad for once? Abigail glares at her father and heads off, making her way to the backstage area once again. Giving Eddie Vega the finger as she walks by the announce area. Eddie Vega, well that was rude, definitely Valoris' daughter. Ben Price, you deserved it. Rob Riot looks at the prone figure of Gabriel Tuck, then to the retreating figure of his daughter, and finally to GMS, trying to put the pieces together. Finally, he leaps forward and hits GMS with a super kick that sends him tumbling into the ringside area. Riot hops over the wall and pulls GMS to his feet and then lifts him up in a torture rack-like move. Riot gets the hold locked in and slowly, steadily moves towards the ring with GMS on his shoulders. Ben Price, where the hell is he going? Eddie Vega, no idea, Benny boy. Rob Riot makes his way to the steel steps and slowly, steadily moving up step by step to the top of the staircase and then hops off, landing on the floor in a sitting position and turning his hold into a backbreaker drop type move. GMS hits and bounces off, landing on the mat, writhing on the mat. Rob Riot pulls himself up, leaning against the ring and gestures for Scott Jones to make the count. Scott Jones checks on GMS and orders Riot to stand up on his own, which he does. Scott Jones then nods and begins counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ben Price, Greg Salazar is still on the mat, writhing in pain. He has to find a way to get up. Eddie Vega, you don't get up from the Riot rack, Ben. 5, 6, 7, 8. Ben Price, Greg Salazar has shaken off worse. I believe he could get up if he wanted to. Salazar appears to be about to get up, finally. But he looks up at Riot and shakes his head. 9. Ben Price, what was that about? Eddie Vega, I'm not sure, did he just give up? 10. Scott Jones calls for the bell. Ding! Ding! Eric Wilson, ladies and gentlemen, the winner, by being the last man standing, and still 4 wins champion. Rob Riot. Scott Jones raises Rob Riot's hand and hands him the belt. Riot takes the belt with a satisfied smirk and looks at GMS, who has gotten up to a knee. Riot holds up 3 fingers and borrows Eric's mic. Rob Riot, that's 3-0, Greg. Better luck next time. Ben Price, Rob Riot just has to rub it in, doesn't he? Eddie Vega, why not? He has every right to be proud of his abilities and victory. Salazar gets to his feet, and shakes his head again. The camera cuts to the upper area, near Von Kraus' private room. He doesn't look happy at all. Salazar asks for a mic really quick and his LWA title belt. Greg Salazar, Rob, hold on a moment. Riot appears to be holding up the 4WW title and reading to leave the ring, before he stops and turns around. Salazar tosses the LWA legendary title belt to Riot's feet. Greg Salazar, I get it now. Don't ask what, don't ask why. Not sure you will get this yet. But a request, add that to the car, will ya? It's not mine anymore. Ben Price, what is that supposed to mean? Eddie Vega, I really don't know. What I do know is that I got that one right. My bookie owes me a fortune. Greg Salazar is seen exiting the ring and heading to the back, leaving Rob Riot to shrug, and then play up to the crowd a bit as Shadow Warfare's credits start to roll. Ben Price, well, we're all out of time, we'll see you for the next Vanguard and Warzone. Eddie Vega, but only Warzone, we're not on Vanguard. Ben Price, you know what I mean. And tune in, I'm told that other than the Luna Championship tournament, we've got Abby Dresden going to have her 5th title defense on next Warzone. Can she claim the prize? Eddie Vega, God, I hope not. Ben Price, but again, that's it, we're leaving you with a shot of Rob Riot in the ring, our reigning 4-wins champion. In the ring, Rob Riot is seen bending over to pick up the LWA Legendary Championship, and then holding up the 4WW title as the final graphic comes up.